From a cheerful kids show about a talking sponge flipping burgers, to 9 episodes built around the same eerie feeling that everything has already happened before. Most people call that feeling déjà vu. SpongeBob SquarePants built entire episodes around it. Time loops, dream loops, the same morning repeated over and over, a life that resets before the previous one has finished. Today, the argument is simple. SpongeBob understood something about repetition that most cartoons never touched. Welcome to Cartoonology. Subscribe if you are new. Let's get started. SB 129, The Causal Loop. There is a Sunday in Bikini Bottom that Squidward has been looking forward to all week. No customers, no SpongeBob, no sound except the clean, uninterrupted notes of his clarinet floating through the inside of his Easter Island head house. That is the plan. That is exactly what Sunday is supposed to be. SpongeBob's alarm clock has different ideas. The foghorn goes off outside Squidward's window facing the wrong direction, and the force of it sends the clarinet straight down Squidward's throat. SpongeBob appears at the door seconds later, cheerful and loud, asking if Squidward wants to come jellyfishing. Squidward, with a clarinet lodged in his windpipe, makes sounds that SpongeBob takes as a yes. Patrick shows up. The day Squidward planned is already gone before it started. This is the opening of SB 129, a Season 1 episode of SpongeBob SquarePants that aired on December 31st, 1999, paired with karate choppers. On paper, it sounds like a standard Squidward gets annoyed setup. The kind the show does regularly in those early seasons. Squidward wants peace. SpongeBob wants company, chaos follows. But SB 129 does something none of those other episodes do. By the time it ends, Squidward has been to the far future, to the very beginning of time, to a place that has no name and no edges, and back again. And the twist at the center of all of it is so quiet and so precise that most people absorb it without stopping to think about what it actually means. Squidward pulls the clarinet out of his throat and tells SpongeBob the Krusty Krab is open. SpongeBob reminds him it is Sunday and the Krusty Krab is closed on Sundays. So Squidward does the only thing that makes sense to him in that moment. He sneaks out the back of his house, runs to the Krusty Krab, and hides inside. SpongeBob and Patrick follow him in almost immediately. Squidward ducks into the kitchen and then into the only room with a door that locks, the freezer. SpongeBob and Patrick wander around for a moment, conclude that Squidward is not there, and leave. Squidward reaches for the freezer door handle from the inside. The handle is jammed. He tells himself someone will find him. They do not find him. The show cuts to a time card that reads 2,000 years later. The door falls off, not because someone opened it, but because the hinge has been rusting for 2 millennia and finally gives out. A frozen Squidward tips forward and crashes to the floor of what used to be the Krusty Krab kitchen and is now something else entirely. A robotic figure stands over him and fires a laser that melts the ice. The robot introduces itself as Spongetron. It is a mechanical descendant of SpongeBob, one of 486 identical clones, one for each letter of the alphabet, which means that in the 2,000 years Squidward was frozen, the alphabet grew from 26 letters to 486. Everything in Bikini Bottom, every surface and structure, has been coated in chrome. The buildings are chrome, the furniture is chrome, the food is chrome. Only the living creatures are still organic. Squidward does not take this in as a marvel or a wonder. He takes it in as a problem to solve as fast as possible. He needs to get back to his own time. Spongetron points him toward a time machine down the hall. The time machine sits in a small room off the chrome Krusty Krab corridor. It has 2 settings on a lever. One reads past, one reads future. Squidward reasons that if SpongeBob exists in this future, and probably existed in his own time, there must be a period in history before SpongeBob existed at all. He shoves the lever to past and braces for whatever comes next. What comes next is the primordial sea. Squidward arrives in a world without buildings, without roads, without anything that looks like civilization. The water is darker and older. The floor of the ocean is bare rock covered in simple plant growth. He plants the clarinet to his lips and begins to play. He does not get far before he notices them. 2 creatures are watching him from a short distance away. They are small and round and vaguely familiar. One is shaped like a yellow rectangle. One is shaped like a pink star. They have no language and no tools and no concept of what they are looking at. They are the prehistoric ancestors of SpongeBob and Patrick, primitive, simple versions of the 2 characters, doing nothing in particular except reacting to their environment. When Squidward speaks to them, they stare. When a jellyfish drifts past, they reach for it and shock themselves on its tendrils over and over, howling each time. Squidward watches this for a moment and then, because he needs them to stop making noise so he can play, he does something practical. He tears strips from the cloth the primitive creatures are wearing and ties them into nets. He demonstrates how to catch jellyfish with the net instead of grabbing them with bare hands. The primitive creatures take the nets and immediately become completely absorbed in using them, chasing jellyfish across the ocean floor with wild enthusiasm. Squidward, satisfied that they are occupied and quiet, raises the clarinet. He plays 2 notes before the sound drives them into a rage. The clarinet noise does to primitive SpongeBob and primitive Patrick what SpongeBob and Patrick's noise does to Squidward every day of his regular life. They turn, furious and territorial, and they chase him. Squidward runs back to the time machine and throws himself inside. He needs to get to his own time, and he needs to do it immediately. He grabs the lever and yanks it so hard he snaps it clean off the control panel. The machine lurches. The display where past and future were labeled spins like a slot machine and stops on 2 lemons and a bar. The machine shudders and begins warping through dimensions at random. Colors flash. Shapes appear and dissolve. It eventually stops. The door opens. Squidward steps out. There is nothing. Not darkness exactly, and not emptiness, the way a room is empty. Nowhere is the word Squidward uses later when he tries to describe this place, and it is the most accurate word available. The space has a floor and a ceiling of sorts, but they are made of colored square panels, pale blue, pink, yellow, that float upward and vanish when touched. Every sound Squidward makes comes back to him with a heavy echo, and mixed in among the echoes, quiet at first and then louder, are voices. Not voices saying words, exactly, just voices repeating one word over and over in strange, layered tones. Alone. Squidward realizes he has what he has been trying to get all day. No SpongeBob, no Patrick, no customers, no Krusty Krab, no foghorn alarm clock launching instruments into his throat. He is completely and entirely alone with his clarinet, in a place where no one can reach him. For a moment, something that might be relief passes across his face. Then the voices keep going. Alone, alone, alone. The word bounces off every surface and comes back wrong, echoed in too many layers, at pitches that do not quite make sense. Squidward walks forward. He walks for what should be a long distance in a straight line. He ends up back in the same spot. He walks again. He ends up in the same spot again. The space has no direction and no exit. Running in any direction loops him straight back to where he started. He stomps the ground in frustration, and the floor gives way, and he falls through it and lands back inside the time machine. He grabs the broken controls and begins talking to the machine the way a person talks when they have run out of every other option. He says he misses Bikini Bottom. He says he misses his house. He says he misses his Easter Island head and his clarinet and his own time. And then, in a voice that sounds genuinely surprised to be saying it, he says he even misses SpongeBob. The machine activates and takes him home. SpongeBob and Patrick are standing outside exactly where he left them, looking entirely unbothered. Squidward comes out of the Krusty Krab talking fast, describing space and chrome futures and primitive creatures, and the place with no name where the voices repeat the same word forever. He tells them he has never been so happy to see anyone in his life. SpongeBob and Patrick smile. They ask if he is ready to go jellyfishing now. Squidward stops. He asks, very carefully, who invented the game of jellyfishing in the first place? SpongeBob and Patrick tell him without hesitation. He did. He taught it to them. And here is the thing that makes SB-129 something more than a time travel comedy. Squidward did not invent jellyfishing and then accidentally go back in time to pass it on. The sequence only works in one direction, and that direction is a circle. Squidward goes back in time because he is trying to escape jellyfishing, while in the past, he teaches primitive SpongeBob and Patrick how to jellyfish because it is the only way to get them to leave him alone for a few minutes. Those primitive creatures are the ancestors of SpongeBob and Patrick, which means SpongeBob and Patrick know about jellyfishing because Squidward taught their ancestors, which means Squidward went back in time because SpongeBob and Patrick wanted to go jellyfishing, which means the thing Squidward hates most about his life on Sunday mornings exists entirely because of what Squidward did while trying to escape it. This is what a causal loop looks like when a children's cartoon executes one cleanly. There is no moment in the chain where the loop begins. Jellyfishing was not invented by Squidward and then spread through history to SpongeBob and Patrick. Jellyfishing was never invented at all. It simply exists, self-sustaining, carried forward by an event that only happened because the event was already happening. Squidward is not the origin of jellyfishing. He is just the part of the loop that made the journey visible. The show drops this information in about 15 seconds of dialogue and then ends. Squidward declares he is going back to fix it, and the ocean surface appears on screen, calm and undisturbed. And that is the episode. No explanation, no resolution, no suggestion that the loop can be broken. According to voice actor Tom Kenny, who plays SpongeBob, SB-129 is the most surreal episode in the show's run. The Nowhere Dimension became a recurring piece of SpongeBob canon. It appears again in the season 6 episode Truth or Square. The episode aired the final night of the 20th century alongside other Nickelodeon episodes with future-themed plots, part of a New Year's Eve Millennium programming block. What the episode understands, at the level of its actual structure rather than its surface comedy, is that the thing Squidward fears most is not SpongeBob specifically. Squidward's deepest fear, played completely straight in the nowhere sequence is being alone with no one to define himself against. Without SpongeBob enthusiastically asking him to jellyfish, Squidward has no one to refuse. Without the interruption and the noise and the frustration, he has no identity to protect. The voices in nowhere saying alone are not a comfort. They are the thing he actually cannot survive. He calls for the machine when he admits he misses SpongeBob, and the machine responds. That is not an accident of plotting. The machine takes him home at the exact moment he stops running from the person who makes home feel like something worth returning to. SpongeBob and Patrick had been jellyfishing long before Squidward ever touched a time machine. They will be jellyfishing long after. The loop was already closed before the episode began. All Squidward did was pass through the part of it that needed a traveler. And that is the first kind of déjà vu this show knows how to build. Not the feeling that something has happened before, but the quiet, vertiginous realization that something has always been happening and you only just noticed you were inside it. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The time loop in SB-129 runs on a track. The next kind of loop the show builds runs entirely inside one person's head, cycling through the same nightmare over and over until the person at the center of it simply gives up and says forget it. Mrs. Puff is already in that loop. She just does not know it yet. Section 2. Doing time, the infinite dream loop. Mrs. Puff has been teaching boating school in Bikini Bottom for a long time. Long enough to know exactly what is coming every single class. Long enough to have developed a very specific relationship with the wall of her classroom, which she stares at while SpongeBob is behind the wheel, because looking at him while he drives is something her nervous system simply cannot handle anymore. She has been arrested before this episode. She will be arrested after it. The arrests are not the worst part of her life. The worst part is that the situation always resets. SpongeBob always comes back. The class always starts again. The boat always leaves the track. Doing Time is a Season 3 episode that aired on January 21st, 2002. It is paired with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4. On the surface, it is a prison comedy about SpongeBob and Patrick trying to break Mrs. Puff out of jail while she actively does not want to be broken out. Underneath that surface is something much stranger, an episode that spends its entire second half inside a recursive dream sequence that loops 4 times before the show simply fades to black without resolving it. The ending of Doing Time is one of the most formally unusual endings in the show's entire run, and the fact that it appears in a cartoon aimed at children makes it more interesting, not less. The episode opens exactly the way most Mrs. Puff episodes open. SpongeBob is taking his boating exam. He is doing a bad job. The boat leaves the driving course almost immediately, tears through Mrs. Puff's boating school sign, careens into a cart of watermelons, attracts the entire Bikini Bottom police force, and then drives off the edge of an unfinished bridge that the mayor of Bikini Bottom has just ceremonially opened, cutting the ribbon at the exact moment SpongeBob bursts through it going full speed. The police follow the boat off the bridge. The boat crashes into a truck full of fruit punch being delivered to Shady Shoals Rest Home, the senior center. The truck tips. Juice floods the building. Every police vehicle crashes into the juice as well. SpongeBob caused all of this. The crash happened on his driving exam. The fruit punch disaster is entirely his fault. But the accident occurred while Mrs. Puff was supervising, which makes her legally responsible under the category of gross negligence. The police arrest her. SpongeBob watches from the street as they put her in the back of the vehicle. He does not get arrested. She does. Inside the Bikini Bottom jail, Mrs. Puff sits on her bunk in a striped prison uniform and takes stock of her situation. Other prisoners around her are complaining that they do not belong there. One woman in a deep voice says she absolutely does belong there. Mrs. Puff ignores all of them and starts listing the positives of prison life out loud to herself. No papers to grade, no horn going off every time SpongeBob hits something, no SpongeBob at all. She does not have to see him for a very long time. The relief in her voice is genuine and specific. She is not unhappy to be in prison. She is unhappy about how she got there, but the outcome, no SpongeBob, is something she has been working toward for what feels like forever, and jail has achieved it without any effort on her part. Meanwhile, SpongeBob goes to talk to Patrick because he feels guilty. Patrick immediately confirms that yes, it is SpongeBob's fault. SpongeBob decides he needs to get Mrs. Puff out of prison because she does not belong there. Patrick comes with him. Their first plan is to get themselves arrested so they can be in the same prison as Mrs. Puff and then engineer an escape. They go to the First Nautical Bank to rob it. SpongeBob walks up to the counter and becomes so absorbed in being polite and following proper banking procedures that he forgets entirely why he is there. He fills out paperwork. He thanks the teller. He and Patrick leave without committing any crime at all. Their second plan is to disguise themselves as rocks, the kind the prisoners break during outdoor labor, so they can be brought inside and communicate with Mrs. Puff. They get delivered in a truck with real rocks and dropped in the prison yard. Mrs. Puff is working outdoors with a pickaxe. She hears what sounds like SpongeBob's voice coming from one of the rocks and calls for the guards. The guards look at the rocks, hear nothing, and conclude Mrs. Puff is hallucinating. They reassign her to kitchen duty. Another inmate breaks the rock costumes with her pickaxe, costing SpongeBob and Patrick their deposit on the outfits. In the kitchen, Mrs. Puff is serving chili. She scoops up a ladle and finds SpongeBob's face in it. He has hidden himself and Patrick in the chili vat. He tells her they are going to set her free. She tells him she does not want to be set free. She likes it here. SpongeBob refuses to believe this. He tells her she must be fully trapped in the prison mindset, cut off from the outside world. He asks her to picture what life on the outside is like, and the show cuts to a single fish going to work in the morning, sitting at a desk, looking out a window at night, while his wife asks if he is coming to bed. That is the outside world. Mrs. Puff looks at this description and feels no pull toward it. She calls the guards. They drag SpongeBob and Patrick out of the kitchen. SpongeBob tells Mrs. Puff through the kitchen window that if she can escape, he will stay after school and decorate the entire classroom. Mrs. Puff calls this the worst offer she has ever received and calls the guards again. SpongeBob and Patrick then appear on the coat hanger assembly line Mrs. Puff is working. She points them out to a guard. The guard looks at the assembly line and perceives SpongeBob and Patrick as raw materials being processed into coat hangers. He sends Mrs. Puff back to her cell. They appear in her toilet. She calls a guard who opens the cell door, looks at the toilet, sees nothing alarming, and flushes it. They appear in her bed. She calls the guards again. This time, the two guards who show up are SpongeBob and Patrick in guard uniforms. They are terrible at pretending to be guards. The real guards show up moments later and find Mrs. Puff screaming. They decide she has lost her mind. She is sent to solitary confinement in a padded yellow cell, fully isolated from the rest of the prison population. For a moment, Mrs. Puff sits in the padded cell and lets the quiet settle over her. No other prisoners, no assembly line, no chili duty, no guards to call. She allows herself to feel something like peace. She has been through a lot today, and this room, despite being a punishment, is the closest thing to genuine rest she has experienced since the episode began. Then the walls start changing. The yellow padding on every surface of the cell begins to shift. SpongeBob's face appears in one of the walls, then another, then all four walls, and the ceiling, and the floor. Every surface becomes SpongeBob's face looking back at her. The room itself has become SpongeBob. Mrs. Puff screams, and then she wakes up. The boat is in the air. The bridge is below them. The police are behind them. Everything is exactly as it was at the start of the episode, mid-crash, before any of it happened. Mrs. Puff looks around and processes what is in front of her. She is back at the very beginning. The crash is still in progress. She was dreaming. All of it. The prison, the chili vat, the coat hanger assembly line, the padded cell, was a dream. She starts to feel relief. She is not going to jail. She never went to jail. It was all inside her head. An orange fish standing nearby asks her why she would go to jail. She is not going to jail. The camera pulls back. Mrs. Puff is wearing a black and white striped prison uniform. A ball and chain is attached to her ankle. She screams and wakes up again. The boat is in the air. The bridge is below. The police are behind them. She is back at the beginning again, in the middle of the crash again, and this time when the sequence plays out, SpongeBob gets arrested instead of her. She watches them put him in the back of the police vehicle. She breathes. She is safe. She is free. The nightmare did not happen to her this time. A police officer approaches and tells her she already served her time. The camera pulls back. She is in the prison uniform again. The ball and chain is on her ankle again. She screams and wakes up again. The boat is in the air. She is in the middle of the crash again. This time, the person driving is not SpongeBob. It is Donna, another prisoner from the jail, sitting in the driver's seat in a prison uniform, asking Mrs. Puff what the dinner menu is tonight. Mrs. Puff screams and wakes up again. The boat is in the air. SpongeBob is driving. The police are behind them. She is at the very beginning again. She opens her mouth to scream. She does not scream. She looks at the situation. She looks at SpongeBob driving. She looks at the police. She looks at the bridge falling away below the boat. She has been here before. She has woken up here 3 times already. She knows what happens next, and she knows what happens after that, and she knows that screaming does not change any of it. She closes her mouth. She sits back. She says 2 words. Oh, forget it. The episode fades to black. No resolution, no escape, no explanation of which version of events was real and which was the dream. The episode never clarifies whether the prison was the dream or whether the crash is the dream and the prison is real, and she simply keeps waking back into it. The looping structure is never explained because the show is not interested in explaining it. What the show is interested in is the moment Mrs. Puff stops trying to wake up from it. The ending of Doing Time is not a character giving up out of weakness. It is a character who has run the calculations enough times to recognize that the calculation always produces the same result. She stops screaming not because she has accepted her situation, but because she has understood that the situation does not respond to screaming. This is a very specific specific and very dark thing to put in the middle of a cartoon, and the show delivers it in about 40 seconds of animation without underlining it or explaining it or adding any music that tells the audience how to feel about what they just watched. The structure of the episode's second half runs on a logic that the show borrows from recursive nightmare scenarios, the kind where the dreamer thinks they have woken up only to find themselves still inside the dream. Each time Mrs. Puff screams herself awake, the world she wakes into is slightly different from the one before. The first waking puts her in the uniform with the ball and chain, having served time she does not remember. The second waking has SpongeBob arrested in her place, which feels like relief until the uniform appears again. The third waking has someone else entirely behind the wheel, someone who has no business being there, asking about dinner. The fourth waking is indistinguishable from the original opening of the episode, except Mrs. Puff knows now that waking up does not mean getting out. Each version of the loop is different enough to feel like a possible escape and the same enough to confirm that no escape is actually available. The show does this deliberately. If every waking were identical, the loop would be mechanical and the audience would clock it immediately as a gag. By changing the details, who gets arrested, who is driving, what the uniform means, the show gives Mrs. Puff and the audience the same experience. Every time, there is a moment of thinking this might be the real one. Every time, it is not. The episode was noted by fans and commentators as one of the few SpongeBob episodes where the majority of what the audience watches is confirmed to be a dream. The ScumbBob Wiki entry for the episode's ending describes it as a paradox, a never-ending cycle, which is the most accurate way to put it. The Amazing Everything Wiki entry confirms that the episode is only the second SpongeBob episode where most of the content is revealed to be a dream, the first being procrastination, which is also built around a single repeated situation that SpongeBob cannot escape. Mrs. Puff's hat changes color several times during the episode, from red to blue to red again to black in one moment, then back. And the show's own wiki acknowledges this and notes that most of the hat changes can be explained by the fact that most of the episode is a dream. The logic of the dream does not have to be consistent because dreams are not consistent. The hat color errors are not errors inside the dream. They are correct. The doing time ending also sits inside a larger pattern that the show builds around Mrs. Puff across its entire run. Her house contains a picture of herself, inside a picture of herself, inside a picture of herself, an image of infinite regression hanging on her living room wall. She ends up in jail repeatedly throughout the series, and the conditions of her release almost always circle back to SpongeBob. In the Season 2 episode No Free Rides, she ends the episode getting arrested, and the warden's condition for early release is that she give free driving lessons, which means escaping prison requires teaching SpongeBob, which means she cannot escape at all. The loop that Doing Time makes explicit through its ending is something that was always running underneath her character. The recurring dream is just the show drawing a picture of a situation that already existed. The padded cell, becoming SpongeBob's face, is the most visually direct version of something the show had been saying about Mrs. Puff for a long time. The thing she cannot get away from is everywhere. It is in the walls. It is in the solitary confinement room designed to give her total isolation. SpongeBob does not have to follow her in to be present. He is the architecture of the nightmare itself. No matter how many doors she closes, or guards she calls, or walls she puts between herself and the source of her suffering, the suffering is already on the inside of every room. The show plays all of this as comedy. The laugh track hits, the timing is tight, the visual gags with the coat hangers and the chili vat and the rock costumes are well constructed and genuinely funny. None of that changes what is actually happening in the episode's final 2 minutes, which is a character discovering that she cannot wake up from her own life. Mrs. Puff says, "Oh, forget it," and the show ends. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. That is one kind of déjà vu, the kind that lives in a single person's head, looping through the same nightmare every time she thinks she is finally out. The next kind is smaller and stranger and built around a much simpler problem. SpongeBob lost his name tag. All he has to do is retrace his steps. How hard can that possibly be? Section 3, Missing Identity, Retracing the Same Morning. The episode does not start with SpongeBob. It starts with Rain, a diner, late at night, the kind of place where the lights are low and the counter stools are worn down from years of people sitting in them. A fish in a hat and a suit is sitting at the bar, upset about something small. He lost his pen. A waitress lends him hers. Problem solved. He thanks her and goes back to whatever he was doing. SpongeBob is sitting in a booth nearby. He has been listening. He walks up onto the counter and informs the man that he once lost something too. Something far more important than a pen. He lost his identity. The man in the hat quietly tells the waitress he has to go. The waitress keeps pouring coffee. SpongeBob does not register either of these responses and begins his story anyway. This is Missing Identity, a Season 3 episode that first aired in Canada on November November 14th, 2002, and then in the United States on January 19th, 2004. The gap between those two dates is over a year, which is unusual for a SpongeBob episode, and happened because the episode was produced in 2001 and 2002, but held back from the American broadcast schedule. The framing device, SpongeBob telling his story to strangers in a diner at night, in the rain, is a direct reference to a style of crime storytelling from old films and television where a narrator recounts a past event from a specific location, usually something dark and melancholy. The episode uses this frame and then fills it with SpongeBob retracing the same 11 minutes of a Monday morning over and over because Patrick cannot say hello correctly. The story he tells goes back to last Monday. He woke up, he says, threw his blanket into the air the way he does every morning, and said his usual phrase, "Good morning, world, and all who inhabit it." The blanket came down over his face. He could not see. He stumbled around looking for Gary, fell off the edge of the bed, and his alarm clock fell on his head. He tumbled down the staircase. The alarm clock launched him across the living room floor and into the window. He slid down the glass to Gary's level and fed Gary his snail po. He tasted the snail po, which he does every morning despite having done so for years and being disgusted by it every single time. He got dressed. He walked outside, said hi to Patrick, continued on to the Krusty Krab, put an apple on Mr. Krabs' desk, and started his shift. That morning, every element of that morning, is exactly the morning he has every Monday. The alarm, the blanket, the stairs, the clock, the window, the snail po, Patrick, the apple, the Krusty Krab. Same sequence, same order, same results. SpongeBob does not tell this as a story about anything going wrong, because from his perspective, nothing went wrong. He got through his routine and arrived at work and everything was fine. The morning is just the morning. It is what Monday mornings are. Then a customer named Debbie notices that SpongeBob is not wearing his name tag. SpongeBob looks down. She is right. The name tag is gone. He does not immediately panic. He tries to explain that he is wearing it, then looks down again, then looks back up at Debbie, then accepts the truth. The name tag is missing. He goes to Squidward to share this terrible development. Squidward suggests he simply get a new name tag. SpongeBob rejects this immediately. His logic is specific and, within the rules of Bikini Bottom, not unreasonable. If someone found his name tag, they could put it on and walk around being SpongeBob. They could destroy his reputation. They could commit crimes and have those crimes traced back to him. The entire population of Bikini Bottom is, in SpongeBob's view, vulnerable to confusing whoever wears the name tag with the actual SpongeBob. Squidward finds this exhausting. SpongeBob finds it genuinely terrifying and begins to hyperventilate so intensely that he passes out. He wakes up on the floor of the Krusty Krab. Squidward is standing over him. SpongeBob asks if he was dreaming. Squidward tells him no, he fainted because he lost his name tag. SpongeBob takes this information in, nods slowly, and then hyperventilates again. Squidward grabs him before he hits the floor a second time and tells him, with the kind of patience Squidward reserves for situations where there is literally no other option, to retrace his steps. Retrace his steps. Go back through the morning. Recreate every moment in order and look for the name tag along the way. It is a logical, sensible suggestion, and SpongeBob immediately calls Squidward a genius. Squidward begins to enjoy this compliment for about 1 second before SpongeBob tells him to cover his shift and runs off. The retracing begins simply enough. SpongeBob climbs back into his bed, pretends to fall asleep, then jumps up and says, "Good morning, world, and all who inhabit it." The blanket covers his face on schedule. He falls. The alarm clock hits him on the head on schedule. He goes down the stairs on schedule, and the clock launches him into the window on schedule, and he slides down to Gary on schedule. He sings the Snail Po song, the most important meal of the day, serving it up Gary's way, pours the food, and tastes it on schedule. He is disgusted on schedule. He walks outside to say hi to Patrick. Patrick says nothing. SpongeBob stops. He goes back to Patrick and explains that Patrick said hi to him this morning, and he needs Patrick to do it again because he is retracing his steps. Patrick tells SpongeBob that his hellos are not a recording that can be rewound and played back. They are special. Each one is its own thing. He is not going to just say hello on command because SpongeBob needs to recreate a moment. SpongeBob tells Patrick it is an emergency. He lost his name tag. Someone could be out there right now pretending to be him. Patrick reacts to this the exact way SpongeBob reacted when he first heard the name tag was gone. He begins hyperventilating. The camera cuts to SpongeBob leaning out of his upstairs window looking down at Patrick standing on the road below, both of them having already recovered from this moment and moved on to making a plan. SpongeBob tells Patrick what he needs him to do. Patrick says he understands. SpongeBob goes back inside to start the routine again. He wakes up. He says good morning. The blanket, the fall, the alarm, the stairs, the clock launching him, the window, Gary, the snail po. He walks outside. Patrick says nothing. SpongeBob stops. He goes back to Patrick. He asks why Patrick did not say hi. Patrick tells SpongeBob SpongeBob he needs a moment. He needs to find his motivation. He cannot just say hello without understanding the emotional truth behind the hello. SpongeBob tells Patrick to forget the motivation. Just say hi. He walks off. He starts the routine again. He wakes up. He says good morning. The blanket, the fall, the alarm, the stairs, the clock, the window, Gary, the snail po. He walks outside. Patrick says hi to himself. Hi, Patrick, he says. Then he realizes his mistake. He apologizes. He laughs. He says sorry to the people watching. He tells SpongeBob they should try it again. The routine resets. Again, SpongeBob wakes up and says good morning, and the blanket covers his face, and the alarm hits him, and he goes down the stairs, and gets launched into the window, and slides to Gary, and sings the snail po song, and pours the food, and tastes it, and walks outside. Patrick gets the giggles. He tries to say hi, but what comes out is, hi, SpongeBob. He collapses laughing. He says SpongeBob again. He cannot stop saying it. He tells the people watching that he said SpongeBob, and then says it several more times while laughing so hard he can barely speak. He asks to do it again. He is having a wonderful time. SpongeBob is standing on the road outside his house, having retraced his morning 4 complete times, and still not found the name tag, and now Patrick is laughing at a mispronunciation that he finds so funny he cannot move past it. SpongeBob looks at the camera. His left hand rests on his cheek. He blinks twice. This is a specific visual reference to a comedic expression made famous by the American entertainer Jack Benny, who was known for responding to absurd situations with a slow, deadpan stare. SpongeBob holds the expression for a moment, and the episode lets the silence sit there. Then the routine resets again. The episode uses a split screen during one of the later repetitions, showing 4 versions of the same morning running simultaneously in 4 boxes on screen. SpongeBob in each box at a slightly different moment in the same sequence. The snail po box next to the Patrick box next to the walk to work box. The format of the split screen reinforces what the episode has been doing all along. This is not 4 different mornings. It is one morning, seen from 4 angles, looping in on itself. Patrick eventually stops laughing long enough to be helpful. He asks SpongeBob if he did anything else on his way to the Krusty Krab that he has not retraced yet. SpongeBob thinks. He said hi to Old Man Jenkins on the road. He put an apple on Mr. Krab's desk. He cannot think of anything else. Patrick suggests they look in the dumpster behind the Krusty Krab, because the name tag might have fallen off in the trash area at some point during SpongeBob's shift. They climb into the dumpster. Patrick begins digging through yesterday's garbage, looking for a small square name tag. He finds a record album from a band called Stingray 5000 and wonders aloud why anyone would throw that away. SpongeBob tells him through clenched words that they are not there to evaluate the dumpster's musical collection and asks Patrick to please focus. The trash piles up around SpongeBob faster than Patrick can move it. Patrick misreads SpongeBob's increasingly desperate hand gestures as encouragement to keep digging. Patrick eventually finds something. He holds it up. The name tag appears, disappears, appears again. He cannot seem to hold on to it. Something about its position does not make sense. Patrick is about to hand it to SpongeBob when he says something that is not about the name tag at all. At least, he says, he does not wear his shirt backwards. SpongeBob goes still. He looks down at his shirt. The collar that should be in front is not there. He reaches around to the back of his shirt. There is the collar. There is the tie. There is the name tag, right where it has always been, sitting on the back of his shirt the entire morning because he put his shirt on backwards when he got dressed and never noticed. The name tag was never lost. SpongeBob was wearing it wrong side forward all day. Every single retracing of his morning, every fall down the stairs, every taste of snail po, every reset when Patrick said hi to himself or got the giggles or said SpongeBob was searching for something that was already there, just facing the wrong direction. The reason SpongeBob never found it during any of the retracing loops is built into the loop itself. He forgot to include getting dressed in the steps he was retracing. The sequence he repeated was wake up, blanket, fall, alarm, stairs, launch, window, Gary, snail po, outside, Patrick. He skipped the part where he put his clothes on every single time, which means he was retracing a morning that was missing the exact step where the error happened. The loop was always going to fail because it had the wrong version of the morning built into it. The answer could not appear through the retracing because the retracing was incomplete in the one specific way that mattered. There is an animation detail in this episode that the show builds the entire mystery around. Every time SpongeBob is seen from the front during the episode, during the morning, during the retracing, during the dumpster scene, his shirt has no front folds and no visible collar, which is what a shirt looks like when it is on backwards and the collar is behind you. The show never draws attention to this. It just shows it quietly in every frame where it is visible. The few times we see SpongeBob from behind before the reveal, the name tag is also not visible, which is an animation error the show includes specifically to keep the secret intact. The clue is in every shot and has no label on it. The episode ends back in the diner. SpongeBob finishes his story. He turns to the waitress to thank her for listening and calls her Betty. She tells him her name is not Betty. She borrowed this uniform from a colleague while hers is being cleaned. SpongeBob absorbs this. He looks at the camera, left hand on cheek, he blinks twice. The Jack Benny look again. The woman wearing someone else's uniform told SpongeBob his story about losing his identity, while she herself was wearing an identity that belonged to someone else. The show places this directly at the end without commenting on it. It is just there, sitting in the last 10 seconds of the episode, matching the beginning of the story to the end of it in a way that the episode has no interest in explaining. The waitress closes the episode herself. She looks at the camera and says plainly that SpongeBob managed to kill 11 minutes. 11 minutes is the exact runtime of a standard SpongeBob episode. She breaks through the wall of the story entirely and addresses the audience directly from inside the diner. The episode narrating itself from inside its own framing device is the last loop the episode runs before it ends. Missing Identity aired as part of Season 3 and was originally produced with Zeus Service as a credited storyboard artist. The episode is noted as the first time his name appeared in the opening credits. The episode is also the second time in the series that a character calls SpongeBob by the name SpongeBoob, the first being the Season 1 episode Plankton. Patrick's line about this being the case, laughing and saying sorry people as if a film crew had been watching him flub his lines, is one of the episode's two fourth wall breaks, the other being the waitress's closing line about 11 minutes. The morning that SpongeBob retraces is not a dramatic morning. Nothing unusual happened in it. He woke up, he fell down some stairs, he fed his snail, he walked to work. The reason the retracing loops are so watchable is not because the morning is interesting. The reason is that the loop reveals, slowly, that SpongeBob's mornings are always exactly this. The alarm clock always falls on him. He always tastes the snail po. He always says the same phrase when he wakes up. These are not things that happened once. These are things that happen every single Monday, identical in sequence and result. And the retracing makes that visible by forcing the audience to sit inside the repetition rather than skip past it. Most episodes of SpongeBob imply the routine without showing it. Missing Identity puts the routine on screen and runs it back 4 times. By the 4th retracing, the audience has the same reaction SpongeBob does. The feeling that the morning is a track that plays whether you want it to or not, that the alarm will hit him and the snail po will taste terrible, and Patrick will be standing outside on the road, the same morning assembling itself around the same person in the same order, reset and running again before the last one has fully finished. The name tag was there the whole time. It was just facing the wrong direction. SpongeBob spent an entire episode looking for something that was always on him, just hidden by the fact that he could not see his own back. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Squidward's version of the same feeling runs longer than 1 episode, much longer. His runs for the full duration of his life at Tentacle Acres, a place where every single day is exactly the same as the one before, and the sameness is precisely what he asked for. Section 4, Squidville, the boredom loop. Squidward has a very clear idea of what a good life looks like. It looks like quiet. It looks like an appreciative audience for his clarinet playing, a neighborhood full of people with refined taste, no sponge-shaped interruptions at any hour of the day, no pink starfish asking questions outside his door, and enough personal space to exist without someone else's enthusiasm pressing against him at all times. He has described this ideal life in various forms across many episodes. The details shift slightly, but the core is always the same. Peace, recognition, distance from SpongeBob and Patrick. Squidville is a Season 2 episode that aired on April 28, 2001, paired with Grandma's Kisses. It is the episode where Squidward gets everything he said he wanted and discovers, over the course of a single extended montage, that the thing he wanted was going to make him miserable in a completely different way from the thing he had. The episode is built almost entirely around repetition. The same daily sequence played forward, then played forward again, slightly worse, then played forward again, with the smile gone, then played forward one more time, with Squidward looking like a person who has forgotten what wanting something feels like. The episode begins with destruction. SpongeBob and Patrick receive reef blowers in the mail. Reef blowers are devices that suck up debris from the ocean floor, large, loud, and powerful. SpongeBob and Patrick begin using them to play with each other, blowing sand and shells back and forth. The game expands. They suck up Squidward's windows. They suck up his door. Squidward, now trapped inside his house with no door and no windows, has to dig a tunnel out through the base of his Easter Island head. He emerges from the ground, furious, and demands that SpongeBob and Patrick replace what they destroyed. They try. The reef blowers shoot the windows and door back at the house with such force that the entire structure explodes. Squidward's house is rubble. His belongings are scattered across the road. He stands in the debris field and tells SpongeBob and Patrick that this is the final straw. He is going to move so far away that he will be able to brag about it. He says, with the specific energy of someone someone who has been building toward this sentence for a long time, that he would rather tear out his own brainstem and skip rope with it at the nearest intersection than go on living next to them. His television lands in the rubble next to him, still powered somehow, still broadcasting. A commercial is playing. A smooth voice is describing a place called Tentacle Acres, a private gated community built exclusively for octopuses, where happiness is just a suction cup away. The commercial shows clean roads, identical Easter Island head houses in neat rows, and residents who all look exactly like Squidward, doing the kinds of things Squidward has always wanted to do. Patrick changes the channel. Squidward takes the remote back and watches the rest of the ad. He has seen enough. He packs and leaves. Tentacle Acres has a security entrance with a guard and an intercom system. The guard's first questions confirm what the community is designed to keep out. Are you a sponge? No. Are you a starfish? No. Squidward is allowed through the gate. The community is exactly what the commercial showed. Every house is an Easter Island head identical to Squidward's original home. Every resident is an octopus, and every one of them looks roughly like Squidward. Same body shape, same general coloring, same bearing. There is a health store called Full of Health that carries, among other things, canned bread, which Squidward finds exciting in the way a person gets excited when they discover that a place stocks something they had given up on ever finding. There is an interpretive dance academy where residents move in synchronized routines that match Squidward's own style. There is a path for biking through the neighborhood. There is a park where a clarinet trio performs every evening. SpongeBob and Patrick call him that night, before he has even gone to sleep on his first day. SpongeBob makes sounds that are meant to be persuasive but come through the phone as pure gibberish. Squidward listens for a moment and then hangs up. He knows what they are doing. He is not going back. The first full day at Tentacle Acres goes exactly the way the commercial promised. Squidward wakes up and rides his bike through the neighborhood. Every other resident is also riding a bike. He goes to the Full of Health store and buys canned bread. He goes to the Interpretive Dance Academy and joins the group. His movements match the other dancers perfectly. He ends the day in the park, where a clarinet trio is performing. He joins them, making it a quartet. The music sounds like clarinet music sounds when Squidward plays it, which is not good, but nobody in Tentacle Acres seems to notice or care because everyone plays the same way. He goes to sleep satisfied. The second day is the same. He wakes up, he rides his bike. Every other resident is riding theirs. He goes to Full of Health and buys canned bread. He goes to the Interpretive Dance Academy and dances with the group. He ends the day in the park with the clarinet quartet. He goes to sleep. The third day is the same. The show presents this through a montage that starts bright and then slowly dims. Not the colors, those stay the same. The dimming happens in Squidward's face. On the first day, his expression is full and open, the expression of someone who has arrived somewhere they have always wanted to be. On the second day, the expression is slightly less full. On the third day, the edges of the smile are doing less work than the rest of the face. By the fourth and fifth day, the smile is present because Squidward is still going through the motions, but it is the kind of smile that has forgotten why it started. He is biking because it is time to bike. He is buying canned bread because that is what comes after biking. He is dancing because dancing comes after the bread. He is playing clarinet in the park because the park comes after the dancing. The sequence has not changed. The sequence will not change. There is nothing in Tentacle Acres that would cause it to change. Every resident is doing the same things in the same order for the same reasons. No one is going to knock on Squidward's door at an unreasonable hour. No one is going to suck up his windows with a reef blower. No one is going to appear in his kitchen uninvited or practice bubble blowing on his lawn or ask him to go jellyfishing on a Sunday. The community was designed to prevent all of those things, and it does prevent them, perfectly and completely. This is the problem. Squidward gets off his bike one afternoon and sits on a bench in the park. He is not performing any part of the daily routine. He is just sitting. He looks at the neighborhood around him, the rows of identical Easter Island heads, the residents moving through their identical days, and something in his expression shifts from tired to something closer to hollow. He realizes, sitting on that bench, that nobody in Tentacle Acres stands out. Not one single person. Every face is a version of the same face. Every house is a version of the same house. Every day is a version of the same day. He has moved to a place where he is surrounded by mirrors, and the mirrors are all showing him exactly what he looks like. And it turns out that looking at yourself from every angle for days at a time with no variation is not peace. It is the inside of a loop with no exit. He hears a reef blower nearby. For a fraction of a second, his face does something. He looks toward the sound, hoping, just for a moment, that it might be SpongeBob. It is not SpongeBob. It is a park maintenance worker who has left the reef blower running unattended beside a sign that reads, "Back whenever." Squidward looks at the reef blower. He looks at the sign. He looks at the reef blower again. He picks it up. What follows is Squidward doing exactly what SpongeBob and Patrick were doing at the start of the episode. He aims the machine at other residents and blasts them with it. He fires it at a group of octopuses sitting peacefully in the park. park. He blows a resident off a bike. He disrupts the clarinet performance in a way that produces a different sound from the clarinet performance, which has been producing the same sound every evening since he arrived. He is not doing this because he had a plan. He is doing it because the reef blower is there and because something in him needed the day to be different from the previous days in some way that he could feel. The residents do not find this charming. They gather into an angry group and corner Squidward. They present him with what they describe as a well-thought-out and organized list of complaints. Squidward, backed against a wall by a crowd of people who look like him, complaining at him the way he has always complained at SpongeBob and Patrick, makes his own complaint. How can everyone in one town act exactly the same? The police officer in the crowd tells him that nobody is forcing him to live there. He can leave anytime he wants. Squidward agrees completely and immediately. SpongeBob and Patrick have been trying to get into Tentacle Acres during all of this. The security guards turn them away at the gate. Patrick's breath from some fried oyster skins he had eaten earlier drifts through the intercom system and knocks the guards unconscious, causing them to fall onto the button that opens the gate. SpongeBob and Patrick enter the community and walk through it looking for Squidward. They cannot find him because every resident looks like Squidward. Patrick approaches a fire hydrant and asks if it is Squidward. Patrick asks multiple actual octopus residents the same question. SpongeBob hugs someone he thinks is Squidward. Patrick asks SpongeBob if he is Squidward now. They are there to apologize and bring Squidward home. They have a cake with the word sorry written on it in icing. The logistics of how Patrick was carrying the cake are left deliberately unclear. Squidward does not go back with them. He launches himself out of Tentacle Acres using the reef blower, the same way a bottle rocket leaves the ground, a long arc into the air, screaming the word freedom on the way up, clearing the walls of the gated community entirely, and disappearing. SpongeBob and Patrick watch this happen. SpongeBob observes that they know at least one thing. It definitely was not that guy. The episode ends before showing where Squidward lands. The structure of Squidville is built on a specific irony that the show plays completely straight. Squidward described his ideal life many times before this episode. Quiet neighbors, residents with taste, space to pursue his art without interruption. Tentacle Acres offers all of this, and the show gives it to him fully and without sabotaging it through external interference. SpongeBob and Patrick do not sneak into the community and ruin it. Mr. Krabs does not appear and make it worse. The Krusty Krab does not come calling. Tentacle Acres functions exactly the way it is supposed to function, and the function is the problem. What the episode is doing, underneath the montage and the reef blower gag, and Patrick asking a fire hydrant if it is Squidward, is making a specific point about the relationship between desire and meaning. Squidward wanted the things Tentacle Acres offered because they felt like relief from something. Relief from SpongeBob's volume, from Patrick's questions, from the unpredictability of living between a pineapple and a rock. But relief is not the same thing as the life he actually wanted. The daily routine he performed at Tentacle Acres was made up of activities he genuinely enjoys. Biking, buying things, dancing, playing clarinet. These are not activities he was forced into. These are his preferences, executed in ideal conditions, available to him every day without obstacle, and they hollowed him out in less than a week. The reason is visible in the montage. On the first day, Squidward is biking among other cyclists, and the fact that they are all biking together feels like belonging. On the fourth day, Squidward is biking among other cyclists, and the fact that they are all biking together feels like being inside a machine. The activity did not change. The residents did not change. The road did not change. What changed is that the repetition made it impossible to feel anything other than the repetition itself. The loop became visible, and once a loop is visible, it is very hard to experience as anything other than a loop. The ironic echo the show builds into the episode makes this even more precise. When Squidward picks up the reef blower in the park and starts causing chaos, one of the Tentacle Acres residents confronts him and says the exact same words Squidward said to SpongeBob and Patrick at the beginning of the episode. How could you possibly have fun with one of those oversized hair dryers? The line is the same. The situation is reversed. Squidward is now SpongeBob, disrupting a peaceful community with a reef blower. The residents of Tentacle Acres are now Squidward, furious about the disruption to their routine. The loop is not just the daily schedule inside the community. The loop is Squidward himself, cycling through the same role but from a different position in it. Squidville is the only SpongeBob episode where Squidward actually moves away from Bikini Bottom, and the show takes this seriously rather than reversing it in the first act. He leaves. He lives somewhere else for days. The departure is real. What brings him back is not SpongeBob winning him over, or the community becoming unbearable because of external forces. What brings him back is the sameness. The ideal life, held for long enough, becomes the thing he needs to escape from. The Tentacle Acres commercial said that happiness is just a suction cup away. The episode's answer to that claim is the boredom montage, the slow deflation of Squidward's face across across the same sequence of events, repeated and repeated, until the sequence is all that is left and the feeling that was supposed to be inside it has drained away completely. He comes back. He always comes back. The loop at Tentacle Acres ends because it is too perfect. The loop back on Conch Street, SpongeBob at his door, Patrick next door, the alarm clock through the window on Sunday mornings, never ends because it is imperfect enough to feel like something is always happening. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next version of this feeling belongs to three people trapped in a forest with a toy that tells them to do nothing, and the toy keeps being right. Section 5, Club SpongeBob, the Conch Loop. The treehouse is in a tree. The tree is a beanstalk. The beanstalk is at the end of Conch Street, close enough to the neighborhood that Squidward rides his bike past it on his way to work every morning. He has probably ridden past it for days without giving it much thought, because the things SpongeBob and Patrick build tend to blend into the background noise of living next to them. The treehouse is small. The ladder going up is a rope. The entrance is a door that two people have been sitting behind for 3 days. 3 days. SpongeBob and Patrick have been in the treehouse for 3 days before the episode begins. This is established early and then not discussed further, but it matters because it means the situation the audience walks into is already old. SpongeBob and Patrick are not new to the treehouse. They are comfortable in it. They have developed rituals inside it, including a secret language that consists entirely of sounds that are not words, and a leadership structure centered on a toy they found in a survival kit. By the time Squidward notices the treehouse exists, SpongeBob and Patrick are already deep into whatever this is. Club SpongeBob is a Season 3 episode that aired on July 12, 2002, though it was released on DVD on March 12, 2002, making it one of the few SpongeBob episodes that appeared on home video before it aired on television. It is paired with My Pretty Seahorse. The episode follows SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward after they are flung from the treehouse into a kelp forest in the middle of nowhere, where SpongeBob and Patrick defer every decision, including the decision about how to escape, to a toy conch shell that communicates through a pull cord and dispenses one of a small number of responses. The responses include maybe someday, no, and nothing. The episode runs on a loop built from a single repeated dynamic. Squidward tries to take rational action. The conch contradicts or ignores this action. Something miraculous happens that rewards SpongeBob and Patrick for doing nothing, and Squidward ends up worse off than before he tried. Squidward discovers the treehouse when he rides his bike to work and hears SpongeBob and Patrick whispering above him. They are speaking in their secret language, which from the ground sounds like a series of vowel sounds and tongue movements that carry no meaning to anyone outside the treehouse. Squidward stops his bike and looks up. SpongeBob tells him they cannot explain what they are saying because he is not a member of the club. Squidward asks what it takes to become a member, besides being a moron. SpongeBob tells him he could not get in even if he tried. Patrick agrees and says Squidward would not fit in. Squidward is not the kind of person who hears the words "you could not do this" and walks away. He grabs the rope ladder and climbs it. He reaches the treehouse door and pushes through it. Patrick was correct in the most literal possible way. The treehouse is built for two small bodies. Squidward cannot physically fit inside it. He is jammed in the entrance, half in and half out, with both of them welcoming him to the club when he grabs the nearest vine to pull himself free. The vine is not a vine. It is a structural branch that is holding the beanstalk together. He pulls it and the entire tree bends backward like a slingshot. The treehouse, with all three of them inside it, launches off the top of the beanstalk in a wide arc across the sky. A couple on the ground below sees it pass, and the man says, "Make a wish, honey," because from down there, it looks like a shooting star. The treehouse disappears over the horizon. It lands in the kelp forest. Kelp Forest is a location in SpongeBob SquarePants that appears in several episodes and is also a level in the video game Battle for Bikini Bottom, where it is widely considered by fans to be the most frustrating level in the game. In the show, it reads as a dense, overgrown area far from Bikini Bottom, not a specific geographic location with known borders, but a general space that functions as wilderness. When the treehouse lands there, it comes down in a small clearing surrounded by kelp on all sides. There is no visible path out. There is no sign of any other structure or person. The crash was not gentle. SpongeBob and Patrick climb out of the wreckage doing their tongue-flicking celebration sound, which is a sustained woo-loo-loo-loo that they perform by rapidly moving their tongues while making noise. They are happy about what just happened, because from their perspective, it was a thrilling ride, and they would like to do it again. Squidward climbs out and looks at the kelp surrounding the clearing on all sides, and immediately begins pacing. He says he is in the middle of nowhere with SpongeBob and Patrick, and demands to know why every 11 minutes of his life is filled with misery. 11 minutes is the exact runtime of a standard SpongeBob episode, and Squidward saying this directly to no one in particular is one of the episode's several moments where the show acknowledges its own format. SpongeBob tells Squidward to calm down. They are going to be fine. They are a club, and as long as they have the magic conch, they will know exactly what to do. He holds up the magic conch shell. The magic conch is a lavender-colored seashell with a pull cord coming out of the base. It operates on the same principle as a magic 8-ball. The user asks it a question, pulls the cord, and the shell dispenses an answer through a speaker inside it. The shell is voiced by Serena Irwin. SpongeBob and Patrick treat it as an authority whose answers must never be questioned and whose guidance must be followed before any action is taken. The shell is, by every objective measure, a toy. SpongeBob and Patrick do not experience it as a toy. They experience it as the most reliable source of information and direction available to them in any situation, including this one. Squidward immediately calls it a stupid toy and says there is no way he is consulting a talking shell about anything. SpongeBob is genuinely alarmed by this. He tells Squidward that the magic conch must never be questioned. Its authority over the club is total. No action should be taken until the conch has been asked. He pulls the cord himself and asks the shell what they must do to be rescued from the kelp forest. The conch says nothing. SpongeBob and Patrick sit down on the ground in the clearing and go completely still. Their faces go blank. They are doing nothing, which is what the conch told them to do. They do not fidget. They do not speak. They do not look around. They sit with the specific stillness of two people who have decided, completely and without reservation, that sitting still is the correct response to being stranded in a forest. Squidward stares at them for a moment. Then he announces that he will be finding his own way out and walks into the kelp. The kelp forest offers no path. Squidward pushes through it in what he believes is a straight line, moving consistently in one direction toward what he hopes is the edge of the forest and the beginning of a road back to Bikini Bottom. He walks for what seems like a long time. He sees something ahead, a light at the end of a kelp tunnel, the kind of visual that means you have found the way through. He runs toward it. He breaks out of the kelp into a clearing. It is the same clearing. He has run in a complete circle through the kelp and come out exactly where he started, where SpongeBob and Patrick are still sitting completely still doing nothing. Squidward does not accept this and goes back into the kelp to try again. Time passes. The episode does not show how much time passes through the next part, only through Squidward's appearance. When the show cuts back to the clearing after his attempts to escape, Squidward has dismantled the treehouse box and built a small shelter from its pieces. He is wearing a hat made from dried plant material. He has grown a 5 o'clock shadow. He is sitting beside a small fire. He catches a bug crossing the clearing and puts it on a tiny pan to cook over the flame. He is managing his survival through practical action, while SpongeBob and Patrick continue to sit in the same positions, doing nothing. He has been here for weeks. This is stated directly when a park ranger arrives later in the episode. Squidward looks at SpongeBob and Patrick with the cooked bug and decides to taunt them about his food. He tells them that they could have survived if they had joined him instead of listening to a toy. He could have taught them what he learned, but they chose to listen to a plastic shell, and now they have nothing to eat. He is the one who took action, and action produced results. He asks them rhetorically whether they really believe the answers to all their problems are going to fall right out of the sky. Above the kelp forest, a plane is in trouble. The pilots need to reduce weight immediately to avoid crashing. They jettison the cargo. The cargo is picnic supplies. A full pre-assembled picnic table with umbrella, a tent, and an enormous quantity of food fall out of the sky and land in the clearing directly in front of SpongeBob and Patrick. The answers to their problems fell right out of the sky. SpongeBob and Patrick emerge from their stillness, praise the magic conch loudly, and begin eating. The table is covered in food. There is enough for everyone. Squidward watches this happen from beside his fire with his cooked bug. He walks over. He tells SpongeBob he was only kidding earlier about everything. He asks if he is still a member of the club. SpongeBob says yes. Once a member, always a member. But if Squidward wants any of the food he needs to ask the magic conch what he should eat. Squidward takes the shell. He asks it politely if he can have the spaghetti. The shell says neither. He asks about the turkey. The shell says it does not think so. He asks about the soup. The shell says no. He asks about a sandwich. No. He asks if he can have anything at all. No, no, no. He goes through this loop. Question, pull cord, no. Several times while his face progresses through colors. His eyes become red. Veins appear. He is standing at a table covered in food that fell from the sky as a direct reward for two people doing nothing, and the toy that rewarded them with the sky food is now telling him, repeatedly, that he cannot eat any of it. He is about to reach a point where something inside him breaks completely. A voice from the edge of the clearing calls out. A park ranger with a machete cuts through the kelp wall and enters the clearing. He looks at SpongeBob, Patrick, and the wreckage of the treehouse and asks if anyone needs help. Squidward runs toward him with relief coming off him in waves. He tells the ranger everything. The weeks, the kelp, the toy shell that SpongeBob and Patrick consult before making any decision, the food from the sky. He explains the magic conch specifically and how it has been running the situation since they arrived. The ranger's expression changes. He reaches into his vest and pulls out a magic conch shell identical to the one SpongeBob SpongeBob has. SpongeBob and Patrick react to this the way people react when they recognize a fellow member of something. They make the woo-loo-loo-loo sound. The Ranger makes it back. He tells them his conch shell guided him to find them. He is a club member. He and SpongeBob and Patrick perform the tongue-flicking greeting ritual together. Squidward stands nearby watching the person who was supposed to rescue him reveal that he is also lost and also running his decisions through a pull cord toy. The three club members ask the conch what they should all do now. Nothing. SpongeBob, Patrick, and the Ranger sit down in the clearing and go still. Squidward looks at all three of them. He looks at the kelp surrounding the clearing. He looks at his small fire and his dried plant hat and the cooked bug he has been surviving on. He looks at the table full of food that he is not allowed to eat. He looks at the three people sitting in organized stillness, waiting for the next piece of sky cargo to arrive. He sits down with them. He says, quietly, "All hail the magic conch." The episode ends there. The show does not follow up on whether they get out of the kelp forest. The conch said nothing, which means they are going to wait there until someone comes to them, the same way the food came to them. The loop of ask the conch, receive nothing, wait, get rewarded anyway has run successfully enough times that even Squidward eventually stops running against it. The thing that makes the magic conch loop different from the other loops in this video is that the loop appears to work. Squidward's approach, rational, active, focused on escape, produced nothing but a 5 o'clock shadow and a cooked bug. SpongeBob and Patrick's approach, total stillness, total deference to a pull cord toy, produced a catered picnic table dropped from a plane. The loop rewards compliance and penalizes effort, and the episode plays this completely straight without tipping it into a lesson or a moral. The conch is not explained. Whether it is genuinely guiding them or whether the food falling from the sky was a coincidence that happened to align with the conch's advice is never resolved. The episode is comfortable leaving that open. What the conch loop establishes is a situation where the same dynamic repeats regardless of what Squidward does. He can try to escape, loop back to the same clearing. He can try to survive rationally, end up with a bug on a pan. He can try to get food from the picnic table. No. Every action he takes produces a variation of the same result, which is that his action did not work and SpongeBob and Patrick's inaction did. The loop is not built around time or memory the way SB-129 and Missing Identity are. It is built around consequence. Every time Squidward acts, the consequence is bad. Every time SpongeBob and Patrick do nothing, the consequence is good. This runs consistently enough that by the end of the episode, Squidward joins the nothing. Club SpongeBob aired in a season 3 that also contains The Algae's Always Greener and Missing Identity, which means the same season holds 3 separate episodes built around different kinds of loops. The consequence loop of the conch, the morning retracing loop, and the life swap loop where a man discovers that the grass on the other side is made of the exact same problems wearing different clothes. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. That last one belongs to Plankton, who got exactly what he wanted for one afternoon and spent the whole time on the phone listening to Mr. Krabs promise he would be back the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Section 6. The Algae's Always Greener. The mirror loop Plankton has been trying to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula for as long as the show has existed. Every plan fails. Every failure ends with him landing somewhere small and far away, usually flicked by Mr. Krabs across the restaurant or launched by some mechanism he built that did not account for how large everything else is relative to him. He goes home to the chum bucket. Karen is there. The holographic meatloaf is on the table. He eats it and starts planning again. This is the loop Plankton lives in before The Algae's Always Greener begins. The episode does not invent the loop. It takes the loop Plankton is already trapped in and offers him a door out of it, lets him walk through, and then spends 11 minutes showing him that the other side of the door has its own loop running, and that loop is worse. The Algae's Always Greener is a season 3 episode that aired on March 22nd, 2002. It opens with Plankton's latest attempt to steal a Krabby Patty. He has hidden himself inside a ketchup bottle on the condiment island, waiting for a customer to pick up the bottle and aim it at a patty so he can launch himself onto the food and escape with it. The customer is Old Man Jenkins. Old Man Jenkins has historically poor aim. Plankton shoots across the restaurant, bounces off the walls of Mr. Krabs' office, and lands on the floor. Mr. Krabs flicks him out. At dinner in the chum bucket, Plankton tells Karen he is sick of his life. He is sick of holographic meatloaf. He is sick of losing. He wants to know what Mr. Krabs' life feels like from the inside. He wants the Krusty Krab, the formula, the money, the status. He wants to be on the other side of the rivalry for once. Karen points out that he built a machine for exactly this purpose last Tuesday. It is called the Switch Lives Just to Know What It's Like Omographier. Plankton is surprised to be reminded of this. He hooks himself up to the machine and presses the button. The machine sends him through a tunnel of light and color. He stops mid-journey to take a sip of soda, then resumes traveling. He wakes up at Mr. Krabs' desk inside the Krusty Krab. lab, wearing Mr. Krabs' clothes, with a nameplate in front of him that reads Mr. Plankton. The machine worked. He is now living Mr. Krabs' life in an alternate version of the world where he runs the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krabs has taken his place at the chum bucket. His first act is to get his hands on a Krabby Patty. He tells SpongeBob he needs 2 patties for a bun inspection. SpongeBob delivers them immediately. Plankton holds the patties and feels, for one moment, that everything he has ever wanted is finally in his possession. Then SpongeBob comes back. It is Tuesday, SpongeBob explains. Tuesday is the day of his weekly performance review. He would like Mr. Plankton to evaluate his work and tell him where he can improve. Plankton tells him he is doing fine and to leave. SpongeBob does not leave. He needs specific feedback. There must be something he can do better. Anything. Plankton, wanting SpongeBob out of the office so he can enjoy the patties in peace, tells him he is using too much sauce on the food. Review over. SpongeBob receives this information the way a person receives news that something they love has died. His face collapses. He makes a sound. He begins to spiral into a crisis about whether he is a good fry cook at all, whether the sauce has always been wrong, whether every patty he has ever made has been ruined by too much sauce. Plankton watches this happen with growing alarm. He was making something up to end the conversation, and it has created a situation significantly worse than the conversation. He promotes SpongeBob to co-cashier on the spot to get him out of the kitchen and away from the sauce question. Squidward immediately appears in the office to complain. He will not stand next to SpongeBob at the register. He refuses. If Mr. Plankton wants him to keep working here, he needs to not be next to SpongeBob. Plankton makes Squidward the fry cook. Squidward is not a fry cook. The kitchen produces something that a customer immediately brings back to the register to complain about, while SpongeBob simultaneously falls apart at the counter over a drink order he got wrong, crying into the register while customers back up behind him. Pearl arrives. She is Mr. Krabs' teenage daughter, and in this alternate world she is also Plankton's daughter. She wants her allowance. Plankton gives her $1. Pearl finds $1 so far below what she expected that she begins crying enormous tears. The tears are physically large enough that one of them hits Plankton and he swallows it, becoming severely bloated from the volume of liquid. The restaurant is descending into chaos on every front simultaneously. The kitchen, the counter, the register, the daughter, and Plankton has not had a single moment with the patties he came here for. Then the villain alarm goes off. Every restaurant has a villain, SpongeBob explains. Their villain is the most despicable creature in Bikini Bottom, a tiny, scheming, formula-obsessed enemy who wants nothing more than to destroy everything the Krusty Krab has built. SpongeBob announces the villain's arrival with the gravity of someone announcing the arrival of a serious threat. The villain is Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs has taken Plankton's place in this alternate world. He lives at the chum bucket. He is married to Karen. He has no clothes because in this world nobody thought to give him any. He swings through the Krusty Krab on a rope holding a Krabby Patty he grabbed from somewhere, naked, shouting that he will be back, that Plankton will never keep him away, that he will return tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. SpongeBob fights him off with a clothes cannon, firing garments at the naked Mr. Krabs until a bra lands on him and he stops. He hands the patty back to a baffled Plankton, and everyone in the restaurant gives a victory screech, a specific high-pitched sound the staff produces when the villain has been defeated. Before Plankton can process any of this, the phone rings. SpongeBob hands it to him. It is Mr. Krabs on the line, calling from the chum bucket. He tells Plankton that he will have the formula. He will be back tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. The words keep coming, the same phrase cycling through the phone in Mr. Krabs' voice with no sign of stopping. And the next day, and the next day. This is the moment the mirror closes completely. Plankton came to the other side of the rivalry to escape being the one who always fails and always comes back. He is now on the receiving end of the exact call he has been making in various forms for his entire career. He is hearing from the outside what it sounds like when someone promises to return forever. It sounds like a loop. It sounds like a promise that will never be kept and will never stop being made. And the next day, and the next day. Plankton cannot take it. He says aloud that it is not worth it and that he will remember everyone in therapy. He presses the button on the switch lives just to know what it's like omographier and travels back through the tunnel of light. He wakes up in the chum bucket. The holographic meatloaf is on the table. He looks at it. He says it is his favorite and begins eating happily. The episode ends before showing whether he immediately starts planning his next attempt to steal the formula. The audience does not need to see it. The loop was already running before the episode started. It is still running when the episode ends. Plankton went through the door, saw what was on the other side, and came back to the same table he has always sat at. The meatloaf that seemed like a symbol of everything wrong with his life at the start of the episode is the thing that makes him happy at the end of it. Nothing changed. The loop reset. The phrase Mr. Krabs repeats on the phone, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, is the most literal piece of loop language language the episode contains. It is Mr. Krabs describing, out loud, what the rivalry between them actually is. Not a conflict with a resolution coming. A cycle. A system where Plankton tries, fails, and comes back. And the next day, forever. The episode's title is a play on the saying, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Plankton even paraphrases this himself before leaving, telling Karen that a rolling stone gathers no algae. His version of the saying, a rolling stone gathers no moss. The show puts the meaning of the episode into his mouth before the episode even begins, and he does not hear it. He is so certain the other side is better that he built a machine for it on a Tuesday. The machine brought him back to the same table. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next version of the same loop is more physical and more surreal. Squidward ends up in a dimension built entirely inside a locker, chasing a clarinet through a forest of horn instruments, getting swallowed by an eagle, landing inside a pinball machine, and emerging from the whole experience back in the same spot he started, except SpongeBob is in the clarinet case. Section 7. Squidward in Clarinet Land. The Surreal Loop. Squidward wakes up happy on the morning this episode begins. This is worth noting because it is unusual. The standard emotional starting point for Squidward in any given episode is somewhere between mild irritation and low-grade despair. But on this particular morning, he has something to look forward to. He has a clarinet recital audition after work. The clarinet is safe in its case. The day has a purpose, and the purpose is good, and for once the morning feels like it is moving towards something, rather than away from something. He arrives at the Krusty Krab, getting hit in the face by a door. A passing customer's morning breath punches him. Various other small indignities absorb into his day on the walk to his station. None of it touches him in the way it normally would, because the clarinet is safe and the audition is coming, and those two facts are enough to keep everything else at a distance. Squidward has had days where his clarinet and his auditions and his artistic ambitions were the only things keeping him functional, and this is one of those days. The clarinet is the anchor. As long as the clarinet is safe, the day holds together. Then, a baby drools on his clarinet. The baby belongs to a customer. The customer brings the baby to the counter, and the baby reaches out and drools directly onto the instrument before Squidward can move it away. This is the specific kind of contamination that Squidward cannot accept before an audition. Not because drool is dangerous to a clarinet in any lasting way, but because the audition is today, and the clarinet cannot go into an audition having been drooled on by a stranger's baby. He needs a safe place for it during his shift. A place SpongeBob cannot reach. A place customers cannot reach. A place where nothing unexpected can happen to it between now and the moment he picks it up and walks into the audition room. He goes to Mr. Krabs and demands a secure storage space. He produces a manual full of Bikini Bottom labor regulations, which Mr. Krabs is visibly allergic to. He begins sneezing the moment he sees the cover of the manual, before Squidward has even opened it. Mr. Krabs gives him his old Navy locker to share with SpongeBob. The locker is described as coming from Mr. Krabs' time in the Navy, and when he opens it to hand over access, a pile of bones falls out that he mentions he forgot about completely, describing them as a prank he cannot remember setting up. SpongeBob thoroughly cleans the inside of the locker and prepares the space for Squidward, who puts the clarinet in and tells SpongeBob specifically and directly not to touch it. Squidward in Clarinet Land is a Season 7 episode that premiered on March 24, 2010, paired with A Day Without Tears. It was ranked number 19 during the SpongeBob Top 100 event that aired in the UK and Ireland in June 2012. The episode was originally titled Locker Share during production, which is the most straightforward possible description of the premise. Two co-workers sharing a locker, and says nothing about what the episode actually becomes once Squidward crawls inside it. The final title, Squidward in Clarinet Land, is a direct reference to Alice in Wonderland, and the journey Squidward takes through the inside of the locker parallels the structure of the original story in a specific way. A character moves through a small door into a world that operates on entirely different rules from the one they came from, encounters authority figures who speak in conditions and requirements, and moves through a series of increasingly strange spaces without a clear map of how they connect. The episode also draws on the structure of the Chronicles of Narnia, where characters pass through a wardrobe into another world. The wardrobe is the locker. Clarinet Land is Narnia. Squidward is not a willing traveler in either reference. He is not looking for a magical world. He is looking for his clarinet. Squidward returns to the locker later in his shift to check on the instrument. He opens it. SpongeBob has converted the interior into a full library. The inside of the locker is now significantly larger than the outside of the locker, with dark hallways stretching back further than the locker's exterior dimensions could possibly allow. Filing cabinets line the walls in organized rows. There is a card catalog system. The space has its own lighting. Squidward looks for the clarinet. He finds the catalog card for it. The card tells him where in the the library the clarinet should be shelved. He goes to that spot. The spot is empty. SpongeBob has relocated it somewhere deeper inside the library, which is deeper inside the locker, which is the size of a standard locker from the outside. He goes back to work. Construction sounds come from inside the locker for the rest of the afternoon. The sounds of building, of walls going up, of something expanding. Other employees walk past the locker without appearing to hear anything. When Squidward opens it again at the end of his shift, the library has grown. More hallways, more cabinets. The dark stretches further back than it did before. The space inside has continued expanding, while the outside remained the same size. Squidward pushes into the locker, going deeper than he did the first time, moving through the dark hallways past the filing cabinets, following the card catalog's directions toward where the clarinet might have been moved. Near the floor of this impossible interior, he finds a small door. It is the kind of door that requires crawling. He gets down and crawls through it. On the other side is a forest. The trees in this forest are made of clarinets. Every trunk is a clarinet body. The branches are clarinet keys. The light coming through the canopy above filters through clarinet-shaped gaps. The ground underfoot is made of clarinets laid flat, their bells and barrels forming the surface. Every surface and structure in this place is built from the instrument Squidward has devoted his life to. He can see his own clarinet somewhere in the distance among all the others, and he begins moving toward it. A large eagle head appears. It does not have a body. It is simply a head, enormous, floating at roughly eye level, regarding Squidward with the settled authority of something that has been the authority in this place for a very long time. It introduces itself as the keeper of the horned forest. It tells Squidward that a clarinet cannot be owned. It tells him he must learn respect for clarinets. He must grant peace to clarinets. These are the conditions of clarinet land. Without meeting these conditions, the clarinet he is looking for cannot be his. Squidward has an audition after work. He does not have time for the conditions. He tells the keeper that he has learned respect. He has no real idea what the keeper means by any of this, and he does not have the patience to find out. He says whatever he thinks sounds most likely to satisfy the keeper and end the conversation, so he can take the clarinet and leave. The keeper looks at him for a moment. The keeper does not believe him. The keeper swallows him. Inside the keeper, Squidward finds himself in a pinball machine. The pinball machine is SpongeBob themed in every detail. The bumpers are decorated with SpongeBob's face. The targets carry SpongeBob's image. The entire interior of the machine is a SpongeBob environment, and Squidward is the ball inside it. A gigantic version of Patrick is operating the machine from outside, enormous in the way that Patrick is sometimes enormous in SpongeBob's more surreal sequences, his face pressed against the glass, completely focused on the game. Patrick launches Squidward through the machine. Squidward bounces off SpongeBob-faced bumpers in sequence, traveling the path the machine's layout dictates, and lands in a prize slot at the bottom. Patrick reaches in and picks him up, delighted to have won something. Squidward asks how Patrick got so large. Patrick considers this question and says it must be the pressure. A vacuum cleaner appears. It comes from somewhere in the machine's interior and immediately begins chasing Squidward. He runs. He finds his clarinet somewhere in the chaos of the machine. It is there, in the SpongeBob-faced pinball environment, inside the keeper who swallowed him. Inside the clarinet forest he crawled through a small door to enter. Inside the impossible library that grew while he was at work. Inside the navy locker that Mr. Krabs gave him to keep the clarinet safe. He grabs it and runs with the vacuum chasing him. He passes through a series of rooms on the way out. One of them is a room of mirrors. In the mirror room, Squidward sees alternate versions of himself reflected back from the other side of the glass. Not his own reflection, not a mirror image that moves when he moves, but a different Squidward who exists independently on the other side and moves according to his own logic. The SpongeBob Wiki identifies this alternate Squidward as the second appearance of what it calls alternate universe Squidward, the first appearance being in the Algae's Always Greener. These versions of Squidward in the mirrors turn toward him and blow music at him from their side of the glass, the sound coming through the mirror surface like sound through a wall. He runs through the mirrors and out the other side and finds the locker door and crawls back through it. He is in the Krusty Krab. The locker is in front of him, ordinary sized from the outside, closed, giving no indication that anything unusual exists inside it. Squidward is standing in the Krusty Krab with his clarinet, breathing hard, having just passed through a filing cabinet library and a clarinet forest and a disembodied eagle head and a SpongeBob pinball machine and a room of independently moving alternate versions of himself. SpongeBob is standing nearby. Squidward looks at SpongeBob. He looks at the locker. He stuffs SpongeBob into the locker, closes it, and arranges for the locker to be put on a bus heading far away from Bikini Bottom. The bus leaves with the locker on it. SpongeBob is inside the locker on the bus, going somewhere distant. Squidward watches the bus leave and goes to his audition. He sits down in the audition room. He opens the clarinet case. SpongeBob is inside the case. He is sitting in the clarinet case holding Squidward's clarinet, and he tells Squidward Squidward, he just wanted to make sure he had it. He was trying to help. He followed Squidward to the audition inside the clarinet case to make sure Squidward arrived with his instrument. Squidward looks at SpongeBob in the case at the audition he spent the entire day protecting. The audition that was the anchor keeping his whole morning together, the thing the clarinet was for. He stands up and runs out of the audition room in horror. The episode ends there. Whether any of the Clarinet Land sequence was real is a question the episode declines to answer. The most widely accepted reading among fans and wiki contributors is that Squidward was dreaming, that after SpongeBob converted the locker into a library and Squidward crawled inside looking for the clarinet, he fell asleep or lost consciousness from lack of oxygen in the enclosed space, and the horned forest and the pinball machine and the mirror room were all something his anxious, pre-audition mind produced while he was unconscious inside the locker. The SpongeBob wiki notes this reading directly and points out that it makes the episode's internal logic coherent. The clarinet forest and everything in it exists because Squidward's mind, under the pressure of the audition, built a space organized entirely around the thing he was most afraid of losing. Someone on the SpongeBob community forum noted in one of the most referenced discussions of this episode that the locker's expanding interior gives the feeling of anxiety dreams, dark hallways and endless filing cabinets, and a chase with no clear starting point for the pursuer. This reading holds when placed against the episode's setup. The audition anxiety is the emotional engine underneath everything. The Clarinet Land sequence, real or dreamed, is built from the architecture of someone who has staked something important on a performance and cannot stop thinking about what happens if the instrument is not there when the performance begins. The keeper swallows Squidward because he said the right words without meaning them. The pinball machine puts him inside a space decorated entirely with the face of the person he has been trying to keep the clarinet away from all day. The mirrors show him versions of himself that do not belong to him and do not move when he moves. He does not earn the clarinet back through understanding or change. He finds it in the chaos and runs. The episode does not pause to give him a moment of growth or realization. He gets the clarinet, exits, ships SpongeBob across town, goes to the audition, and SpongeBob is in the case. The loop the episode runs is precise. Squidward cannot arrive at the audition without SpongeBob becoming part of the audition. He can lock SpongeBob in the locker and put the locker on a bus leaving the city, and it changes nothing. SpongeBob will be in the clarinet case. The destination Squidward is trying to reach, the performance, the room where his talent gets evaluated on its own terms, completely separate from the noise and chaos of his daily working life, is not accessible from inside that daily life. The distance between Squidward and the audition he wants to give is not measured in miles or bus routes. SpongeBob is not in the locker anymore. SpongeBob is in the case. SpongeBob was always going to be in the case. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next loop runs on something much simpler. No surreal forests, no eagle heads, no pinball machines. Just SpongeBob sitting at a desk with an 800-word essay he cannot make himself write, and a clock on the wall that keeps moving forward while he keeps finding new reasons to look at everything except the paper in front of him. Section 8. Procrastination. The essay that won't end. SpongeBob has homework. This is already unusual. SpongeBob goes to Mrs. Puff's boating school and has gone there for as long as the show has existed, but the show rarely follows him home with schoolwork attached. Most episodes that involve boating school stay at boating school. The driving course, the classroom, the parking lot where Mrs. Puff waits with a clipboard, and steadily diminishing hope. Procrastination brings the school into SpongeBob's house and sits it on his desk and asks a simple question. What happens when the most enthusiastic, most task-oriented, most genuinely eager character in Bikini Bottom has to do something he does not want to do? The answer is that he does everything else that exists in the universe first. Procrastination is a Season 2 episode that aired on October 26, 2001, paired with I'm with Stupid. The assignment is an 800-word essay for Mrs. Puff about what not to do at a stoplight. SpongeBob sits down at his desk at the start of the episode with a pencil, a blank piece of paper, and what appears to be genuine intention to complete the work. The desk is his workspace. The paper is in front of him. He is ready. He picks up the pencil and writes one letter. The letter is I. He puts the pencil down and looks at the letter. One letter out of roughly 4,000 characters he needs to produce. He has made a beginning. He acknowledges this. He picks the pencil back up. The pencil is not sharp enough. He can feel that the tip is slightly less sharp than it should be. A properly sharpened pencil is important for good writing. He goes to sharpen it. He sharpens it until the pencil is a tiny stub, barely long enough to hold. He goes back to the desk. He looks at the paper. The bubbles in his fishbowl are going the wrong direction, or maybe the right direction. He watches the bubbles to determine which direction they are normally supposed to go. This takes time. He resolves the bubble question to his satisfaction and returns his attention to the paper. He is hungry. Writing requires energy. He goes to the kitchen and makes a sandwich. sandwich. He brings the sandwich back to the desk. He looks at the sandwich and decides Gary should have it. He gives the sandwich to Gary. He is now back at the desk, having made and given away a sandwich without eating any of it, which means he is still hungry, so he goes back to the kitchen. He eats a sandwich at the kitchen table instead of at the desk. The kitchen table is not the desk. He is not doing homework at the kitchen table. He is eating, which is a separate activity, and eating at the desk would get crumbs on the paper. He finishes eating and goes back to the desk. He has been at the desk for some time now and has produced one letter. The episode tracks this through the clock on the wall behind him, which the show cuts to periodically. The hands move, the room stays the same. SpongeBob sits at the desk and the clock moves, and the paper stays blank except for the eye. He calls Patrick. Patrick answers. SpongeBob tells Patrick he is working on his essay and cannot talk long. They talk for a long time about nothing. The conversation has no content that relates to the essay or to anything in particular. It is two people talking because talking is available and the essay is not comfortable. SpongeBob eventually says he has to go because he has to finish his essay. He hangs up. He is back at the desk. He reads the phone book. The episode does not explain why the phone book is at the desk or how it got there. It is simply there and he is reading it. The phone book does not help him write an essay about what not to do at a stoplight. He reads it anyway. He reorganizes his underwear drawer. The episode shows this directly, which is one of its best visual choices. Squidward appears for a moment because Squidward lives next door, and SpongeBob has apparently done something next to the shared wall loud enough to be audible. SpongeBob is deeply invested in getting the underwear organized correctly, and this is presented with the same level of focus SpongeBob brings to fry cooking, which is his actual life purpose. He falls asleep at the desk. The dream that follows is where procrastination shifts from a comedy about a familiar feeling into something that commits harder to the anxiety underneath that feeling. The essay begins writing itself in the dream. The words appear on the paper without SpongeBob doing anything. He watches them appear and feels relief. The essay is writing itself. The problem is solving itself without him. Then the words start moving. They come off the paper. They chase him. The essay, which he has been avoiding all evening, becomes the thing pursuing him through his own dream. He runs from his own homework through a version of his house that operates on dream logic, and the essay is everywhere, filling the walls, filling the floor, inescapable in a way that the blank page on the desk was never inescapable because the blank page could be ignored. He wakes up at the desk. The paper is still blank except for the eye. The clock on the wall shows that it is morning. He has spent the entire night sitting at the desk doing everything except writing the essay and then dreaming about the essay chasing him, and the result is one letter on a page and a full night gone. He panics. He grabs the paper and pencil and runs out of the house still in his pajamas, heading for the bus stop. The essay is due today. He has 800 words to write and no time to write them, and a night of doing nothing behind him. He runs down the road. He reaches the bus stop. A note is posted. School is canceled. Mrs. Puff has written to inform her students that she will be out today. SpongeBob screams. The scream is the episode's final beat, and it lands the way it does because of the specific shape of what preceded it. SpongeBob did not fail to write the essay because he could not write it. He did not fail because the topic was too hard or the assignment was unclear. He spent a full night finding ways to not do something he was entirely capable of doing, constructed an elaborate architecture of small tasks and distractions, and a phone call to Patrick about nothing, fell asleep avoiding the work, dreamed about being chased by the work, woke up with nothing done, and ran to school to face the consequences. And then the consequences evaporated. School is canceled. The essay does not need to be submitted today. He screams because the night was wasted for no reason. The avoidance was pointless. He could have written the essay and had a full night's sleep, or he could have not written it and also had a full night's sleep, and instead, he found the exact middle option where he did neither and also did not sleep. The episode was produced in 2001 and confirmed by the writing staff to be built directly around the real experience of procrastination. The writers have described working on the script as being aware that they were writing about procrastination while also finding ways to not finish writing about procrastination, which gave the episode its specific internal accuracy. The details that SpongeBob uses to avoid the essay are not random. Each one is the kind of task that feels almost productive. Sharpening the pencil is a writing-adjacent activity. Making a sandwich is self-care. Calling Patrick is a brief break. Reading the phone book is technically reading. None of them are the essay. All of them are close enough to the essay's general category that doing them feels like forward motion. The loop the episode runs is a fixed-point loop. SpongeBob keeps returning to the desk. Every distraction ends at the desk. The pencil sharpening ends at the desk. The sandwich ends at the desk. The phone call ends at the desk. The underwear drawer ends at the desk. The desk is always there. The paper is always there. The eye is always there. And SpongeBob is always finding the next thing to do before the next word gets written. The loop is not caused by anything external. There is no SpongeBob in this episode troubling another character. SpongeBob is both the person running running the loop and the person trapped in it. The distraction and the thing being avoided are both entirely inside him. Procrastination aired in a season that also includes Squidville and the Algae's Always Greener, which means season 2 alone contains one episode about a character discovering that his ideal life is a hollow loop, and one episode about a character spending a night in a loop of avoidance. Both loops are driven by desire. Squidward wants the perfect life, and Plankton wants Mr. Krabs' life, and SpongeBob wants to be done with the essay. The desire is real. The pursuit of it produces the loop. The loop runs until something external ends it. The boredom in Squidville, the phone call in the Algae's Always Greener, the canceled school notice in Procrastination. The canceled school notice does not save SpongeBob. It just ends the immediate crisis. The essay still exists. Mrs. Puff will return to class, and the assignment will still be on the board, and SpongeBob will sit down at his desk that night with a pencil and a blank piece of paper. The clock will start moving. The pencil will need sharpening. Gary will be hungry. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next kind of loop in this collection does not live inside one character or one night or one desk. It lives outside in a campsite 1 inch from Bikini Bottom, and it runs on a rule system so specific and so complete that breaking it at any point sends everything back to the beginning. Squidward is about to learn every rule the hard way. Section 9, the camping episode, the Sea Bear Rule Loop. The campsite is 1 inch outside Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob measures this specifically and deliberately before setting up the tent. 1 inch. He and Patrick have dragged all the equipment out of Bikini Bottom, the tent, the sleeping bags, the campfire supplies, the marshmallows, and placed everything exactly 1 inch past the city's boundary, which is marked by a sign. They are technically outside Bikini Bottom. They are technically camping. The distance between the campsite and SpongeBob's front door is roughly the length of a thumbnail, but the sign says outside and they are outside, and so this counts. Squidward is watching this from inside his house. He comes out to investigate because SpongeBob and Patrick setting up any kind of equipment near his property is the kind of thing that requires monitoring. He asks what they are doing. SpongeBob explains that they are going camping and will be spending the night outdoors, just the two of them, completely separate from Bikini Bottom and its comforts and amenities. Squidward looks at the campsite, which is 1 inch from civilization, and decides that this is among the more pathetic things he has witnessed. He tells them that camping is pointless and uncomfortable, and that he will be spending the evening inside his house with all its comforts while they sit outside in the dirt. He goes back inside. SpongeBob and Patrick begin the camping experience. They build a campfire. They cook marshmallows. They sing a song. The song is called the Campfire Song, and it is one of the more formally constructed pieces of music in SpongeBob SquarePants. The song is about singing a campfire song, and it contains instructions to the singers about how to sing it. Sing it with me, sing along, it's not that long, while also being the song itself. It accelerates through its verses and becomes briefly extremely fast before slowing back down. Patrick cannot keep up with the fast section and misses his part. The song ends. SpongeBob plays his ukulele. The evening is pleasant. The camping episode is a season 3 episode that aired on April 3rd, 2004, paired with Krabbyland. It was originally titled SpongeBob Outdoor Man Pants during production, and later had the working title Squid Gets Mauled, which is more accurate to what actually happens in the second half. The episode was written and storyboarded by the team during the original golden era of the show, and is consistently ranked among the most beloved episodes of the series by fans. The campfire song became one of the most recognizable musical moments in the show's history. The sea bear, the creature at the center of the episode's second half, became equally iconic, though for completely different reasons. Squidward cannot sleep. He can see the campfire from his window. He can hear the music. He comes back outside and tells SpongeBob and Patrick that their noise is keeping him awake, and that camping is an activity for people who enjoy being miserable outdoors, and he has no interest in it. SpongeBob invites him to join them. Squidward declines. SpongeBob tells him he is welcome anytime. Squidward goes back inside. He comes back out 20 minutes later and says he changed his mind. He will join them for a short time, not because he wants to camp, because the noise is not stopping, and if he cannot sleep, he might as well sit by the fire. He sits down. SpongeBob is glad he is there. Patrick is glad he is there. The fire is warm. Squidward begins to relax slightly. This is the moment the episode shifts. SpongeBob mentions the sea bear. A sea bear, SpongeBob explains, is a creature that lives in these parts. He describes it with the specificity of someone who has studied the subject thoroughly. It has the body of a bear and the head of a walrus. It can be attracted to a person and will attack them repeatedly if that person does certain things. The list of things that attract a sea bear is long and specific, and has an internal logic that only works if you accept it completely and without questioning any of it. Eating cubed cheese attracts a sea bear. Sliced cheese is fine. Shredded cheese is fine. Cubed cheese specifically will bring a sea bear. Waving Waving a flashlight back and forth in a circle attracts a sea bear. Wearing a sombrero in a goofy fashion attracts a sea bear. Wearing it in a formal manner is acceptable. Playing a clarinet badly attracts a sea bear. This particular rule is notable because Squidward plays clarinet badly as a defining characteristic of his existence. SpongeBob does not point this out. He simply includes it on the list. Wearing a hoop skirt attracts a sea bear. Limping attracts a sea bear. Running attracts a sea bear. Running attracts sea bears worse than walking. Squidward listens to this list with his arms crossed and his expression set to maximum skepticism. He has heard a lot of things in his life that turned out to be wrong, and this list is going directly into that category. He tells SpongeBob that he does not believe in sea bears and that everything on the list sounds made up. He says he read about this in a book, SpongeBob tells him. Which book? Squidward asks. A good one, SpongeBob says. Squidward decides he is hungry. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a block of cheese. He begins cutting it. He cuts it into cubes. The sea bear arrives immediately. It comes from somewhere in the darkness beyond the campfire's light and goes directly for Squidward, mauling him thoroughly off screen. The show does not show the mauling, only the sounds and the movement in the darkness, before disappearing again. Squidward crawls back to the fire, significantly more damaged than before. He is torn and battered and breathing hard. SpongeBob looks at him with complete sympathy. He tells Squidward that cube cheese is one of the things on the list. Squidward just experienced the list. The list is real. He will not do any of those things again, Squidward says. SpongeBob nods. Good. As long as he avoids everything on the list, the sea bear will not come back. Squidward reaches into his bag for something to do, and his hand closes around a flashlight. He pulls it out. He turns it on. He begins moving the light around in a slow circle because he is not thinking specifically about the flashlight. He is thinking about the sea bear and whether it is really real, and his hand is just moving. The sea bear comes back. The mauling is more thorough this time. Squidward returns to the fire worse than before, more torn, more battered. SpongeBob points out, with the gentleness of someone delivering information that costs them something, that waving a flashlight in a circle is also on the list. Squidward knows this. He was there when the list was recited. He did not think about the list when his hand started moving. He will be more careful, he says. He sits very still for a moment. He is thinking about what he has in his bag and whether any of it appears on the list. He looks across the campfire at SpongeBob and Patrick. He is going to be fine. He just needs to not do the things on the list. The list is known. He knows the list. He will not do the things on it. He is wearing a sombrero. SpongeBob notices the sombrero at approximately the same moment the sea bear does. Squidward is wearing it in a goofy fashion. The sombrero appeared on his head between scenes without explanation. The sea bear does not wait for an explanation. It comes back. This is the structure the episode runs for its entire second half. Squidward gets attacked. He returns to the fire. SpongeBob identifies which item from the list caused the attack. Squidward acknowledges this. A brief period passes. Squidward does something else from the list, usually without fully registering that he is doing it. The sea bear comes back. Squidward returns to the fire worse than before. The loop runs without external interference. Nobody is making Squidward do the things on the list. SpongeBob is not setting traps. Patrick is not involved in causing any of the attacks. The sea bear is not acting outside its established behavior. Every single attack is caused by Squidward doing one of the specific things he was told not to do after being told not to do them, in a sequence that makes no accommodation for the fact that he just got mauled and should theoretically be more careful. The hoop skirt appears on him the same way the sombrero did, between scenes, without setup, as though the costume elements of the sea bear attraction list are assembling themselves on Squidward's body, independent of his choices. He limps. He runs at one point, which brings the sea bear back immediately, and harder than before, because running is worse than walking, according to the list, and the sea bear appears to be aware of this gradation. SpongeBob confirms after the running attack that yes, running makes it worse. This was also on the list. Patrick asks at some point whether there is anything that can protect them from a sea bear. SpongeBob says yes, an anti-sea bear circle. If you draw a circle in the dirt and stand inside it, the sea bear will not cross the circle's boundary. This is presented with the same factual certainty as everything else SpongeBob has said about sea bears, citing the same good book. They draw a circle. SpongeBob, Patrick, and the very damaged Squidward stand inside it. The campsite is now the circle. They cannot leave the circle because leaving the circle means being outside the circle's protection, and the sea bear is still out there. The camping trip has become a situation where 3 people are standing in a dirt ring 1 inch outside Bikini Bottom, unable to move because a creature that Squidward did not believe in an hour ago has mauled him repeatedly for doing things off a list he was given before the first mauling. Inside the circle, SpongeBob brings up the sea rhinoceros. The sea rhinoceros, he explains, is attracted by the sound of people talking about sea bears. The best protection against a sea rhinoceros is a repelling sea rhinoceros horn. Patrick pulls a horn out of his bag and begins blowing it. The horn is is meant to repel sea rhinoceroses by producing the specific sound that sea rhinoceroses find unpleasant. Patrick blows it enthusiastically. From somewhere in the darkness, something large begins moving toward the campsite. The episode ends on this moment. The sea rhinoceros horn is, in practice, attracting something by making the noise associated with it. Or the sea rhinoceros is coming anyway. Or the protection is real, and what is approaching is something else entirely. The episode does not say. It cuts to the ending card before whatever is in the darkness reaches the campfire. What the episode understands about the loop it is running is that the loop is not about the sea bear. The sea bear is consistent and rule-following, and actually fairly reasonable, given that it only attacks when someone does the specific things known to attract it. The loop is about Squidward's relationship with the information he has been given. Every piece of information SpongeBob provides is accurate. The list is real. The circle works. The book is correct. Squidward spends the episode doubting information that turns out to be true, and doing things he was explicitly told not to do within minutes of being told not to do them. The maulings are not random. They are the consequence of not fully incorporating knowledge that was made available. This makes the camping episode's loop different from every other loop in this collection. In SB 129, Squidward is trapped in a loop he did not choose and cannot escape. In Doing Time, Mrs. Puff is trapped in a loop inside her own head that she cannot wake up from. In Missing Identity, SpongeBob is trapped in a loop caused by an incomplete version of his own morning. In Squidville, the loop is built into the place Squidward moved to. In Club SpongeBob, the loop is built into the conch answers. In Clarinetland, the loop is built into the geometry of a surreal space. In Procrastination, the loop is built into SpongeBob's own avoidance. In the camping episode, the loop is built into Squidward doing the wrong thing immediately after being told what the wrong thing is. The rules are handed to him before the first mauling. He receives them again after each subsequent one. He could, in theory, follow them. He does not follow them. Not because he is trying to prove a point or because he is being careless. He simply cannot maintain the full list in his active attention at the same time as everything else he is experiencing. The discomfort of camping, the darkness beyond the fire, the presence of SpongeBob and Patrick, the general situation of being 1 inch outside Bikini Bottom at night, having been mauled by something he said did not exist. The list slips. Something on it gets done. The sea bear comes back. Squidward is not stupid. He is a person who has too many things happening at once and cannot keep the most important information at the front of his mind while managing all of it. This is a very specific and very recognizable kind of experience, and the episode runs it through the comedy of escalating physical consequences without once suggesting that Squidward deserves what is happening to him. SpongeBob never gets impatient. He never says you did this to yourself or expresses anything other than genuine sympathy and the willingness to keep providing information when asked. The maulings are not punishment in the episode's emotional logic. They are just what happens when the wrong item from the list gets activated. The campfire song at the start of the episode and the sea bear loop in the second half are the same episode's two halves, and they feel like different shows. The song is joyful and rhythmic, and Patrick missing his part is a gentle comedy. The sea bear sequence is darker and more physical, and by the third or fourth mauling carries a weight of inevitability that the song did not have. Squidward is going to do something else from the list. The audience can feel it before he does it. The episode lets the audience feel it, lets them see the sombrero before Squidward registers the sombrero, lets them watch his hands circle the flashlight before the attack comes. The loop creates anticipation. Every moment of calm after a mauling is the quiet before the next item on the list activates. The episode was originally going to be called Squid Gets Mauled. This is the most accurate title for what the second half is. But SpongeBob Outdoorman Pants was also considered, which points to the episode's original framing. A story about SpongeBob taking camping seriously in the way he takes everything seriously. The final title, the camping episode, is the most neutral and the most honest. It is exactly that, an episode about camping. The camping just comes with a list of rules that one of the campers cannot stop breaking. They are still standing in the circle at the end. Patrick is still blowing the horn. Something is still moving in the darkness. The loop has not closed. The episode just stopped. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next section is the last one, and the last kind of loop is the one that was never really about any single episode at all. It is about Mrs. Puff and what her entire existence looks like when you step back far enough to see the full shape of it. Section 10, No Free Rides, The Endless Cycle as background fact. There is a picture on the wall inside Mrs. Puff's house. It is a picture of Mrs. Puff. Inside that picture is another picture of Mrs. Puff. Inside that picture is another picture of Mrs. Puff. The images nest inside each other, each one smaller than the last, going inward without a visible endpoint. The picture is not the focus of any scene. It is not discussed by any character. It sits on the wall of her house, in the background of shots that are about other things. things. Visible if you are looking for it, and invisible if you are not. The show put it there and said nothing about it. It is the most accurate image in the entire series for what Mrs. Puff's life actually looks like. No Free Rides is a Season 2 episode that aired on February 19th, 2001, paired with I'm Your Biggest Fanatic. It is the episode where SpongeBob comes so close to passing his boating exam that Mrs. Puff gives him a passing grade on an extra credit essay just to make him stop taking the test. The decision unravels immediately. SpongeBob cannot drive. He has never been able to drive. Giving him a license does not change this, and Mrs. Puff knows it does not change this before she makes the decision, and makes it anyway because she is so desperate to be free of the loop that she takes the first exit that appears, even knowing the exit leads nowhere good. The episode begins with SpongeBob's driving exam. He scores a 6 out of 100. This is actually an improvement. Mrs. Puff, doing the math on what it would take for SpongeBob to pass with a combined score high enough to get his license, realizes that if she assigns him an extra credit essay worth enough points, she can make his total score a passing one without him ever demonstrating that he can drive. She assigns the essay, she goes home, she imagines, in a brief fantasy sequence, what her life will look like without SpongeBob in it. The fantasy shows her teaching a class full of attentive, capable students. She is calm, she is happy, the classroom is peaceful, she laughs. SpongeBob turns in the essay the next morning. It is one sentence. The sentence is, I am SpongeBob, and I am ready to drive. Mrs. Puff reads it. She gives him full marks. She writes out the license. She hands it to him. She tells him congratulations, and do not come back. SpongeBob drives away in his new boat. Mrs. Puff stands outside the boating school watching him go, and experiences something she rarely gets to experience. The specific feeling of a problem leaving. He is gone. The license is his. He is someone else's problem now. She goes inside. SpongeBob immediately drives back past her window. He is driving badly. He is going to hurt someone. She watches him pass. She puts her head down on her desk. The rest of the episode follows Mrs. Puff as she attempts to take the license back by stealing SpongeBob's new boat in the night, disguised in a black outfit with a ski mask. She breaks into the boat. SpongeBob is asleep inside the boat because he loves the boat so much he slept in it. He wakes up. He does not recognize Mrs. Puff in the disguise. He believes a criminal has stolen his boat. He begins fighting the disguised Mrs. Puff for control of the boat, while she tries to stay disguised and also steer, and also take the boat somewhere she can confiscate it quietly. The boat goes everywhere. It crashes through fences and buildings and causes the kind of destruction that SpongeBob's driving normally causes. Except this time, Mrs. Puff is behind the wheel, and SpongeBob is in the passenger seat fighting her. The police show up. They pull the boat over. SpongeBob explains to the officers that a criminal stole his boat, and he tried to stop her. He points at Mrs. Puff, still in the ski mask. She pulls the mask off. The officers recognize her. SpongeBob recognizes her. SpongeBob tells the officers that Mrs. Puff is not a criminal. She is his boating teacher, and this is all just a misunderstanding. He is very loyal to her. He does not want her to get in trouble. The officer tells SpongeBob that Mrs. Puff is absolutely getting in trouble. She stole a boat. She caused significant property damage. She is being arrested regardless of SpongeBob's feelings about his boating teacher. Mrs. Puff gets put in the back of the police vehicle for the second time in the series. SpongeBob watches this happen the same way he watched it in Doing Time, from the street, confused and a little sad. He calls after her that it is okay because the warden told him she can get out early if she does a favor. The favor is giving free driving lessons. She will be released from prison on the condition that she return to the exact situation she committed a crime to escape. She turns and looks at him from the back of the vehicle. The vehicle drives away. The episode ends. Mrs. Puff's arrest in No Free Rides is her second arrest in the series. Doing Time is her third. Across the full run of SpongeBob SquarePants, she is sent to jail multiple times, and the circumstances of each arrest connect back to SpongeBob directly, or to the consequences of being his teacher. She once tried to get SpongeBob to pass his exam by taking him on a highway where she believed simple driving conditions would help him succeed. The highway trip became a disaster. She has been established in multiple episodes as someone who is legally unable to leave Bikini Bottom. The show introduced a bracelet in one episode that restricts her movement and keeps her within the city's boundaries. She cannot run, she cannot stay. She teaches SpongeBob. He fails, she returns, he comes back. The recursive picture on her wall is not a decoration, it is a self-portrait of the situation she is in. To understand the full shape of Mrs. Puff's loop, it helps to start at the beginning of her relationship with SpongeBob and follow it forward through the series. She appears for the first time in the Season 1 episode, Boating School, which aired in July 1999. SpongeBob wants to work at the Krusty Krab. The Krusty Krab requires a boating license. Mrs. Puff runs the only boating school in Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob enrolls. He knows everything there is to know about boating theory. He can answer every question correctly in the classroom. The moment he gets behind the wheel, something breaks in him and he cannot function. situation. He drives badly and panics and causes destruction and fails. Mrs. Puff is his teacher. She is responsible for him while he is behind the wheel. The disasters that happen during his tests happen under her supervision, which makes her legally accountable for them, even though she is in the passenger seat with no control over what he does. This dynamic is established in the first episode she appears in, and it does not change. It cannot change because it is the structural relationship between the two characters. SpongeBob needs the license to work at the Krusty Krab. He cannot get the license because he cannot drive. He cannot stop trying to get the license because he wants to work at the Krusty Krab. Mrs. Puff cannot give him the license because he cannot drive. She cannot make him stop coming back because he is enrolled in her school and he keeps enrolling again after every failure. The loop was built into the premise of their relationship on the day she was introduced. What the series does with this premise over the years is gradually make the loop more visible and more specific. Early Mrs. Puff episodes treat the dynamic as a comedy setup. SpongeBob fails the test. Something explodes. Mrs. Puff puffs up in distress. The comedy is light and the damage resets between episodes, the way all damage in episodic cartoons resets. But as the series continues, the show starts putting detail into Mrs. Puff's experience of the loop in ways that make it harder to treat as purely comedic. She has a line in one episode where she says that if SpongeBob could just pass his boating test, he would be out of her life once and for all. The line is delivered with the weight of someone who has thought about this specific outcome many times and understands exactly what it would mean. She is not frustrated by a current situation. She is describing a structural condition of her existence. He cannot pass. She knows he cannot pass. She continues teaching him. The loop runs. In the episode Bumper to Bumper, which aired in season 8, Mrs. Puff takes SpongeBob outside Bikini Bottom to a long, empty highway where there is nothing to crash into, hoping that the simple conditions will allow him to pass at last. For a while it works. SpongeBob drives normally on the open road. Mrs. Puff watches him driving correctly and allows herself to feel something close to hope. Then they re-enter Bikini Bottom, and SpongeBob's driving immediately deteriorates. The city is the trigger. Something about the environment of Bikini Bottom causes SpongeBob to lose the ability he just demonstrated. Mrs. Puff understands by the end of this episode that it does not matter what conditions she creates. He will drive normally outside the city and fail inside it, and she will teach him again, and the same thing will happen again. The episode Mrs. Puff, You're Fired, from season 4, takes the loop and inverts it temporarily. Mrs. Puff is fired from her position as boating school instructor because SpongeBob has such a poor pass rate. A military-style driving instructor named Sergeant Roderick is brought in to replace her. Sergeant Roderick is extremely strict and extremely effective. He trains students who were struggling and passes them quickly. He is confident he can get SpongeBob driving properly within a short period of time. He spends an entire training montage working with SpongeBob on increasingly basic skills. By the end of the montage, SpongeBob can drive perfectly, but only when blindfolded. The moment the blindfold comes off, he cannot drive at all. Sergeant Roderick cannot explain this. Nobody can explain this. Mrs. Puff is rehired because she is the only person who has developed the specific tolerance required to be near SpongeBob while he is behind the wheel, and no replacement can acquire that tolerance fast enough to keep the school running. She comes back to the school she was fired from to teach the student she cannot make pass. The loop absorbed the interruption and kept running. In the episode Summer Job, Mrs. Puff ends up working at the Krusty Krab during her summer break. She is SpongeBob's colleague for the duration of the episode rather than his teacher. The dynamic shifts slightly because the authority structure is different. They are both employees rather than teacher and student. But by the end of the episode, SpongeBob has made her feel guilty enough about something that she agrees to take him back as a student. She returns from her summer break to the boating school. SpongeBob returns as her student. The loop resumes. The warden who oversees the prison where Mrs. Puff has been incarcerated multiple times is a recurring figure in the background of her life in a way that is not always obvious. The terms of her early releases have consistently involved returning to teach SpongeBob. The specificity of this condition, not community service, not a fine, not a general teaching requirement, but free driving lessons for SpongeBob specifically, suggests that her return to the loop is not incidental to her prison releases, but structurally required by them. She gets out of prison by agreeing to go back to the thing that put her there. The recursive picture on her wall captures all of this without any of it being stated. A picture of Mrs. Puff containing a picture of Mrs. Puff containing a picture of Mrs. Puff is a visual representation of a life that keeps producing the same image no matter how far inside it you look. Every layer is the same as the one containing it. The inside looks like the outside looks like the inside. There is no point in the regression where a different image appears. SpongeBob's side of this loop is worth looking at because it is so different from Mrs. Puff's experience of it. SpongeBob does not experience the loop as a loop. He experiences each driving driving lesson as a fresh attempt with a real chance of success. He is genuinely optimistic about each test in a way that is not performed or forced. He actually believes, each time, that this might be the time he passes. His relationship with Mrs. Puff is warm and loyal. He respects her as a teacher. He considers her a meaningful figure in his life. When she gets arrested in No Free Rides, he tries to help her. When she is fired in Mrs. Puff You're Fired, the show does not suggest he is glad she is gone. He experiences the loop as a series of individual events, each one complete in itself, none of them the continuation of something that has been running since 1999. Mrs. Puff experiences the loop as a loop. She knows it is a loop. She has enough information about her own situation to see the shape of it from the inside, and seeing the shape of it does not give her any power to change it. This is the specific quality that makes her the most precise déjà vu character in SpongeBob SquarePants. The other characters in this collection move through loops that they do not fully understand. Squidward does not know the nowhere dimension is a loop until he has run its perimeter twice. Mrs. Puff, in Doing Time, does not know she is in a dream loop until the first waking. SpongeBob does not know why he cannot find the name tag during the retracing. Mrs. Puff, in her broader series arc, knows exactly what is happening and watches it happen anyway. The knowledge does not break the loop. It just means she is aware of being inside it. The episode No Free Rides shows one specific attempt to break out. She gives SpongeBob a passing grade he did not earn because she calculates that removing him from her school is worth the risk of him being on the road with a license he should not have. She makes the choice fully conscious that it is a bad choice with real consequences. The consequences arrive within minutes. She ends up in the back of a police vehicle, having committed a crime to escape the situation she created by trying to escape the situation. The attempt to exit the loop added another layer to it. This is why No Free Rides works as the anchor for the loop section. Every other episode in this collection isolates one kind of loop and runs it through a single episode. No Free Rides is the one that shows what happens when a character tries to exit the loop through the loop's own mechanics and discovers that the exit leads back inside. The license was an exit. The license produced an arrest. The arrest produced a condition of early release. The condition was more teaching. The loop did not open. It just got longer. The picture on Mrs. Puff's wall is still there. The Mrs. Puff inside the picture has the same picture on her wall. The Mrs. Puff in that picture has it too. They all do. Every Monday morning in Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob throws his blanket into the air and says, "Good morning, world," and all who inhabit it. The blanket comes down. The alarm clock falls. He slides to Gary. He sings the Snail Po song. He gets dressed. He walks to Patrick. He says good morning. He goes to the Krusty Krab. He works his shift. He goes home. He goes to sleep. He does it again. Every week, Mrs. Puff opens the door of her boating school, and SpongeBob is on the other side. Every time Squidward tries to play his clarinet on a Sunday morning, SpongeBob's alarm clock is already pointing at his window. The loops do not close. They do not need to. They are not building toward an ending. They are the shape of the life the show built in Bikini Bottom, a place where the same things keep happening in the same order to the same people, and where that sameness is sometimes the funniest thing in the world and sometimes the saddest, and most of the time both at once, depending on how long you have been watching and how much of the morning you recognize.
If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.